report, and this is an unofficial meeting. We are not going to be conducting any school district business tonight, but we are going to have reports and presentations, and everybody will be allowed to participate. But I'd like to ask before we have the approval of the minutes. Let's do that first. We have the minutes of the August 6, 2024 budget workshop number 2. Yes, ma'am.
I'm muted. We only have 3 board members that were present
Yes.
for that. Are we still able to approve it with just these 3? Or do we need to hold for our next business
I
meeting?
believe that you can. You have a quorum present.
Okay,
And the thing is that I will
The
be
majority?
I will be abstaining because I was not here for that.
all right,
As long as you have the majority of the board.
sounds good. Then I
Present.
motion we approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Ms. Lensing, second by Mr. Riddle. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Ramirez. Abstain. Mr. Riddle.
Yes.
Mr. McBride. Ms. Hannah.
Yes.
Ms. Lensing.
Yes.
Ms. Fabian. President Rodriguez.
Pass. Motion carries. Okay, it's not on the agenda, but I would like to, at this time, give the opportunity to anybody who wants to come up and address the board on any matter, whether it is on the agenda or not. Is there anybody here? You will be able to participate in the discussions for the actual reports, but this is an opportunity to address the board on any matter whatsoever. Okay, let's move on. Reports and presentations. 4A, Illinois State Board of Education fiscal year 2026 budget recommendation. Who is going to be presenting? Looks like Mr. Lattimore to me. I don't think you're live.
Give it a minute.
Testing.
There you go.
We're live now. Good evening, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Placencia, colleagues, our community members here, as well as those viewing us at home. Tonight, we're going to present to you the 2026 budget profile. I and my colleagues, led by Ms. Polk, our Associate Superintendent, Business Services, will be walking you through a number of issues related to the forthcoming year's budget. We can start with the first slide. This is the ISB profile. Can that get brought up a little bigger? Oh, there.
Oh, Ms. Polk.
Hello, Board President, Carolina Assistant Board President, Superintendent, board members and colleagues. As Mr. Lattimore said, we're presenting to you the FY26 budget. We think that it's going to reflect what the board desires are, and we believe that it's going to not create a deficit. Okay. So the information that's projected here is ISB's budget request. And so we want to point out the evidence-based funding. That was the basis of our projection for evidence-based. They requested a 4.1% increase, and so we used that information in our projections. In our projections, all of the other numbers were remaining level. Even though it has a request to increase from the state, until it's enacted, we really don't know what is going to happen. So we took a very, very conservative approach. And we did not increase the areas. Areas like regular transportation, vocational transportation, early childhood, those type things. Typically every year, we present that information, and we normally kind of use the projected increases that they're requesting, But I think because of the financial climate, both at the state level and the federal level, I think that it's best for us to take that proactive approach. So we wanted to present ISB's information. The other thing that we wanted to present, most of the information that we had as areas of emphasis are in the presentation that we're going to give to you tonight. But do you have the one that's for ISB financial profile? D, yes. D. Yes, thank you. So what we wanted to point out here, we're very proud of this as a district. You'll see for 6 years, consecutive years, we've been at recognition. That's the highest financial profile at the state level. We had 1 year that we were at review, and that was mostly because we were doing capital improvement. And so we used a little bit more money than we otherwise, and review is not a bad financial rating.
So this chart notes our financial ability. Oh,
Yes, and that's from ISB. We didn't create this. This is directly from the ISB website.
right. Well, thank you, because
Yes.
I actually thought it was the school record.
No, this is our financial profile.
Okay.
Yeah, based on ISB's criteria, that we have adequate funding to preserve us, as well as enough revenue in the bank. Recognition, review, early warning, and then watch. Watch is the lowest. And so you could see there that we've been out of watch since 2009. And we can explain, some of the periods that we were in early warning, and then, of course, in review, because we've been doing more capital improvements. And so it reduced the availability of resources, but it doesn't mean that we were not financially safe. Yeah. So this is really something to be proud of. So we've been at, you see, 3.25, and that wasn't even low, right? And so we're 3.8, 3.9 out of a possible 4.0. So that's admirable. So I commend the Board of Education and the superintendent on this financial standing. Then we're going to go to, if there's no other questions here, we want to start presenting the information from the presentation. It'll house all of the other information.
Thank you, Ms. Pope. Refer to the first slide, please. As you are aware, many of our community members are too, we have a budget development committee. The Budget Development Committee is a group of central office administrators, principals. Obviously, we are fortunate to have some board members on our group. We also have community members who serve as critical friends to assist us in examining our budget as we proceed through the process. This is after vetting by our division chiefs and then tentative approval by the superintendent to move forward for the Budget Development Committee. That occurred in April 25th of this year, and that's a process we've done for probably the last 7 or 8 years. And we're very proud of that process because many times our parents and our community members will ask us questions that we may assume, and gives us the opportunity to relook at our numbers and also to add information to them that they can spread in the community so that we have a fully comprehensive budget that represents not only what is needed educationally, but also provides information for our community. As you can see, there are a couple of things we'd like to bring to your attention. First, there's an $800,000 letter that we've sent to Representative Mayfield to continue her support for our current wraparound center. We're very proud of that. I think it's the only 2 in the state, and we are fortunate to have one. We are preparing a letter to seek continual support As we indicated by Ms. Polk, 4.1% for evidence-based learning. We are looking to anticipate $2 million in Medicare, which we are going to bill out from the 22-23 year to the federal government. And the next bullet indicates we've not gotten any type of guidance from the federal government level since October of 24, but we're still putting those claims in order to seek dollars for services that we provide to our students. And we're still waiting word from the CEO in terms of $750,000 outstanding to the district that DECO has committed to us as part of our beautiful building and wraparound center here.
That's different. 750,000. So, question and answer. This is not our 750,000 that we have been waiting, right?
My understanding is not, ma'am, but I will verify that.
It's in
but-
addition to.
Correct. When I left the district, we had 750 outstanding. My understanding that has been paid to us, but I will verify that before we leave today. Okay.
1 million for Robbie Lightfoot. Is that this money?
We received that money some time ago.
Okay.
Legal helped us to get it. Yes, we received that money some time ago.
Okay.
Mr. Clary helped to lobby to get us that money
So
that we were
that's over
promised.
and done.
That is over and done.
Okay.
This is a grant that we got through the foundation for $750,000, and we're awaiting reimbursement.
Okay. And another question, our Medicaid reimbursement, we're behind on getting that money?
That has nothing to do with us.
No, I get it.
Yes. But let me explain. That has nothing to do with us. It's because of the executive orders and all of the freeze on Medicaid that they have not paid us since October. That is the information that we've gotten from Dr. B. And so he sent us a letter regarding that $2 million, and we were excited about that. And so we're waiting to see whether we're going to get that. But we wanted to put a disclaimer here because the Medicaid issue is still a Medicaid issue. And even though they sent us the letter, we want to make sure we're moving cautiously by assuming that we're going to get that money.
I just wanted to follow up with the DCEO reimbursement. Do we have general timing on when we're going to get the $750,000? And if we don't have timing, is there a possibility they're not going to reimburse us? I love
That
a
is a
laugh.
good question. Ms. Hannah just mentioned about the $1 million that we were promised in 2014, I believe. And it took us like several years to get that money. So we just know that it exists. We're monitoring.
Okay.
And the superintendent of the district is taking proactive measures to contact them, because we have contacted them. It's not as though that we've not spoken to them. We have spoken to them about getting the money, as well as you saw on the notes that we're going to write a memo or letter from the superintendent to the legislators about the EBF.
Okay.
So we're monitoring the cash flow, we're monitoring funding, and we are taking proactive measures to address our concerns.
Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about revenues. We've given you a 6-year profile. Please note that 2020 through 2024 are audited, reflected in our AFR, and it's on file with the state. Obviously, 2020 is when the COVID era started. You can notice our revenues were increasing, and then in 2025, you see a decrease. We're post-COVID. Primarily, that increase in revenue, the EBF, which was noted, also the COVID dollars, the ESSER family, there's 3 of them. Those dollars were infused into our system as revenues. So essentially, we grew up from $240 million to $312 million. Those dollars are now gone. So our revenues accordingly dropped. And you can see and note that is budgeted, that is not actual. Obviously, we've not completed this year, and those audits will not take place till the summer into the early fall, so that we can meet statutory requirements. But the revenue projected for next year is $279 million.
That 10.448%, that's the amount that our budget.
That's the percentage, yes, ma'am. We gave you real dollars, and we gave you a percentage, simple up and down arrow, depending on how you learn. I like to keep it simple. And also, you can see the actual audited versus projected or budgeted. Yes, ma'am. I can't hear you, ma'am.
And we were able to spend all of our funds in a timely manner for all of the ESSER funds and all of the COVID funding that we got.
Yes.
We didn't have any that were, we got all of it.
What we
spent it.
got, we
Perfect.
spent, correct.
We had a lot of
Now, let me-
districts
Yeah, I
that
was gonna
didn't,
say,
that's
were we
why.
reimbursed
We
for
had,
all of it?
we had a lot of districts that didn't.
We had 2 grants that we had a small amount that we did not spend, but overall, we spent most, if not all of our money, which would be considered all of our money. We are not on the list, and we're proud of that. We are not on the list for having a huge amount of money to roll over and not get. So again, kudos to the Board of Education and the superintendent for planning on how to spend ESSER.
Can you help me understand what 2 grants we didn't spend the monies for?
I will have to come back to you
Okay.
unless you have it on yours, but
The relief.
elevating bilingual educators, that one was only like, what, 14? Was a small amount,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, just so they can hear you on the mic.
So the 2 grants was elevating bilingual educators, and that one we did not capture about 14,000 and change. That grant was supporting staff to do higher education, and then there was some staff that left the program, so we ended up getting refund checks, which we weren't able. So we had expended, but then withdrawals from that program prevented that. And then the other one was a very, very small amount for our Digital Equity D3 grant. If memory serves me correct, that was a $1.5 million grant, and we didn't expend $150 of that. So
Oh, wow.
very negligible for that
Yeah.
one.
So what did we do with that, amount that we did not?
We just weren't able to claim it. We weren't able to capture it.
It was just,
Yeah, it was just
Left on the
it left there, yeah.
But to be very clear for the public, it's nothing that the district had done to lose out on those funds. It was essentially shifting staff out of the program that we weren't eligible for, and then a negligible $150.
Negligible $150. And the other one, it wasn't the district shifting, it was participants of a
Yeah,
program
staff.
that withdrew from the higher education program that they were participating in.
Right. So it's something we couldn't control.
We
that.
could not control that.
Beautiful. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Sure. Thank you.
$70-80 million in ESSER money.
Yeah.
So you're talking $12,000. I
Yeah.
mean, we did it.
Yeah.
The district did it. And as I said before, we are not in the position of losing $1 million, $2 million, or $3 million. In essence, we lost nothing.
Yeah.
So I need to point that out.
Well, I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure it was clear because
Yes.
we don't need misunderstanding with the community.
That's right.
Like this was well organized
Yes.
from beginning to end. So great.
Yes, it was planned, very strategic, and we spent our money, that's the other thing I wanted to say. Before the September deadline, the money was spent. So we did not go into the current fiscal year with any outstanding money, and that's admirable.
Yeah, Ms. Polk, with that projected 10.5% drop in our revenue, and I heard you say that we are not going to project a deficit budget, so are we going to be bringing our budget down 10.5% this year?
We'll speak to that a little bit later if you would allow me to do that, because I could show you the numbers. Because we're coming into the year with an estimated fund balance that can absorb that,
Right.
we're not going to require a deficit reduction plan.
Okay, but how many years can we do that? Can we continue to do we're not gonna project a deficit, but how many years do we have reserves that we would be spending down so that we would not be, running a deficit in a few years?
Well, those are the things that we're in consultation with the superintendent and administration, that we're reviewing all of our expenditures and making necessary adjustments. So we knew, I'm sorry,
Right,
this is
we
so
knew
loud.
We knew
So
that.
we knew that, and we've spoken about that multiple times in the board meetings, that we were going to come to a cliff. This is
Right,
nothing
right.
that we really created ourselves, but it's because we got this money in COVID, so we had to spend it, right?
Right.
And so the expenditures went down. And so now that COVID period is over, we have to pivot and make the necessary adjustments, and we are aware of that.
Are other districts doing the same thing that we're doing?
Every district.
Worse.
No, I know they're worse, but I'm saying, are they, no,
Some left a lot of money on the
my question is, are other districts gonna do what we're gonna do? You're telling me is use some reserves so that they don't drop, they don't have to project less, start cutting. That's my question.
Yes.
Are other districts gonna use reserves, as you're saying we're gonna do, so that we don't have to?
There's
Cut.
different methodologies that districts are using across the state, but when I've been in meetings with them, many of them are assessing where they are financially. Some are doing immediate cuts right now, and those that I've heard that are doing those immediate cuts are deficit spending. They're not in the same position that we are in right now. I think because of financial management, we've been able to build up monies in the bank to be able to sustain us for a period of time.
Right.
And so given that we would have to pivot and pivot so greatly, even though there's so many needs within the district, I think that the approach that the superintendent and administration is making is a prudent one, because you can't just fall off the cliff, right, like that, when you've been operating at a certain level for an extended period of time. It has to be vetted, it has to be discussed, it has to be strategic.
Right,
And
right.
so.
I guess I agree with that, but it's
Yeah.
just, personally, if I realized my, income was going down,
Yeah.
I would start, even if I had reserves, I would start to take some close look at where I could start saving, so that I don't have to really precipitously in another year or two,
Yes, I understand.
yeah. So
Those
I guess I want the
discussions-
rationale why we're not doing that.
Okay, I can
Those
tell you-
discussions are being
Yeah.
had, actually.
Yes, we'll get those.
Yeah.
I can tell because we have a great financial department, and during the COVID time, we did not, from what I understand, we did not add things that we could not sustain after all of the COVID money was gone.
Right.
But I
Thank you for
gotta
that.
put in
Yes.
this side note. That we did not get our wise field done. And that's something that is a worry me piece for me about our students' athletic fields. And so hopefully we're on the road to being able to get that done pretty soon.
Yes. What we will see in future slides is the increases that we gave in salaries. So
Right.
much of that was direct student contact, right? So,
That's what y'all looked at, that's semantics, but, yeah.
It's direct. Yeah, you've got that.
yes, that's in future slides. Yes. Any other questions?
Okay, we haven't got to transportation, or did we?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're still at the
Let's
high
keep it
level.
rolling.
We're still at the high level.
Yeah, I am very much aware.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to put a commercial in. Strategic budgeting.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the major reasons this district has done as well, and people are trying to model what we are doing.
Yes, yes, they are.
I had the pleasure of doing this since I retired in Wisconsin for 1 year because the governor pulled a fast one on the school districts, and I've come to Kenosha. I come down here to Waukegan after retiree, and Ms. Polk is singing my song, strategic budgeting. And the superintendent, to her credit, has embraced it, and we are moving forward. But we are well ahead of other districts in the state because we knew the train was coming, prepared for it.
Absolutely.
Thank
Right.
you.
So if we can move on to the expenditures. Again, we pre-COVID, around COVID area 2020, we give you a 6-year profile. You will note actual numbers, audited numbers, 2020 through 2024. You can see as we got additional revenues, our expenditures went up. And then in 2025, you can see that is budgeted. That is not real, not through this year. Our expenditures are estimated at 332.
That's too much. Oh,
There's a reason, yeah. You want to, the reason to spoke?
You really can't see the full picture here because in that number you have capital improvements that's there. And you also have to note that we had significant raises in 2024. That's when we had the teacher raises and also WIP raises. So those were substantial. Okay, so you're going to see a climb that in that year, and then it doesn't go away. We're building
have to go
upon those raises. And so in 25, you also see additional capital improvements that are there. So in the next slide, you will get a little, more insight, more information on by fund where the increases were. Okay.
As you all are well aware, the budget's a very complex document, very complex process. So we're trying to kind of spiral you in to detail. If we go to the next slide, you can see again from 2019 through 2025, you can see actuals, which is 19 through 24, and then budgeted, which is 2025. Again, you see the total numbers, revenues and expenditures by year, about the 5th or 6th row down. And then you can see that what Mrs. Polk was referring to, the breakdown by fund, 10 through 90. 10 obviously is the education fund. I'm just going to hit a few of them for our public who are unfamiliar with the numbers. 40 is our transportation fund. 70 is our working cash. And then we have tort and life safety at 80 and 90. And then 50 is our retirement funds, taxes. 20 is operations, which we use to maintain our buildings. Are there any questions on that one?
what's 70, 80, and 90?
70 is working cash, tort fund, and life safety, respectively. Okay. Did you have a question, sir? I'm sorry. Yeah, Gene.
Well, I, as I'm looking at this, my only question is, so we're still increasing expenditures, even though revenue is dropping 10.5%. So, I mean, in other years, sometimes expenditures, well, it looks like we didn't go up. Back in 2020, we only went up 0.3% or 3% in revenues. I mean expenditures, but here we're going up 5.5% is projected. So I don't know. You're going to have to explain to me why we're going up in expenditures when revenue is dropping 10.5%. I know we're using other money, but
At the end of this presentation, we'll give you an opportunity if we have not made ourselves clear. But I think you'll get the answer to your question. Yes, ma'am.
Just on some fast math rounding numbers, just with Fund 10, which is the education fund itself, that's roughly a 6% increase from 2024 to 2025. Some of the other funds go up and down a little bit, but between that up and down, that will level out. So this 5.59%, to me seems it's like primarily driven by the education fund, number 10. Would that be relatively accurate? That's what you're telling us?
That's correct. Also, I'd like to bring your attention to the capital. The district has done a lot of work in the capital improvement area, or Fund 60, over the years, if you
Yeah.
look at the time span. So you see those numbers
Right.
dropping, and then obviously some would push forward the next year because projects wouldn't be done. But you're correct to your point. The preponderance of money we put to the children, which is Fund 10, in direct instruction, instructional support.
Another point that we're proud of, we only went out for a bond deal for the $30 million. Last year, for part of it, $15 million, and then January for the other $15 million.
Right.
The $30 million per year that the board wanted us to do capital, that came out of the fund balance. We did not go out for debt. So we need
Okay.
to point that out.
Sure.
That the board strategically requested that we spend upwards of 60 or 70 million dollars. That money came out of the coffer.
And this reoccurring debt for the next, 4 years? For the teacher contract? Okay, that's reoccurring.
Yes, we build upon it. It's stagnant, it's fluid, because people come, people go, you know. But yes, the contract.
And
Right.
so each year, that expenditure will be reflecting that year's contract amount, not the whole 26. Of course, I know it's spread out over that time. But each year, we're going to have to add that into our expenditures.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Y'all know what I'm saying, been saying it, we gotta streamline our spending. Now that we're at this point, even though the projection looks good and everything, you know, but I'm gonna say it, been saying it, gonna keep saying, we still have to be careful, because we do not know what's coming out of Washington, DC, and executive order.
Well, even the state.
And, yeah, but, right.
Yeah, that's the bigger one, for sure.
And the state is bound by the federal government, so.
Yes, I think that we all hear you, and we're having those discussions about how to pivot. You know, with all of the information that's so uncertain right now, I think that it would be impulsive to make some drastic changes. We're making assumptions, and that's why every time we present the budget, we give you what assumptions that we're making. So if those, you know, do not come into fruition, then we're poised to make the appropriate changes, and we'll have to make the adjustments in the budgets that we've approved.
Long as it.
And/or the board can agree to deficit spend, one of the two.
Oh, no, we're not doing that, because see, you keep deficit spending year after year after year. It's just gonna make the deficit bigger, and then we'll end up having to do the Musafa, taking out tax anticipation warrants. And look, we are not going back. We're not going back.
Back then, we had, when I first came to the district, Ms. Hannah, we had a budget, we had a balance in the bank
I know,
of about 28 million across
know.
all 9 funds.
I know.
We gradually started increasing that. And so now, it's not as though we're broke. We're not broke. We have about how much in the bank now, right? We have 105 million in the bank. So we do have more, a significant amount of cash, more than we had back then. It's just that we we need to look at what we're doing because our needs are different, right? Our salaries are different by board directive. And so we're poised to make the shifts if we need to.
Mr. Vukovic had his hand up.
Technically, this is a deficit budget.
Yes.
However, we're fortunate that because of past years,
Absorb it.
Right.
Riddle's point, that money's paying about how many
That's right.
That is correct. Yes, but let me point this out. We've been, and I've said this before, we've been deficit spending in the current year for years. And we knew that that was going to be the case. When we got IRA money, we budgeted strategically. And so we used that money to keep positions in the school. It was like 3 or 4 pillows that we were able to use to spend the money. So the district, what it did was we weren't going to lay anybody off, even though we were financially scrapped. But we got that money in, and I think we got maybe upwards of 30 million, something like that. And so we put it to pay for the salaries, right? So if we put that to pay for the salaries, we were able to flip, and I've said this before, because if you go back to all of those financial documents, you'll see that we had a negative $12 million in the education fund. We had a negative $4.8 million in transportation. We had a historical deficit in capital projects of upwards of 2.2 million, 2.4, I believe it was. But because we strategically utilized that money and maintained the staffing levels, we were able to go from a negative 12 million to a positive 12 million. That was a $24 million swing. And so from that time, we have to know that we're going to negative spend in that current year because we saved ourselves due to smart budgeting, right? Smart fiscal management. And so let me get my thought. So in addition to that, we've been able to get more in evidence-based funding when we had general, and we have another slide that's going to show that. Because if you go back then, because I know you know that, Ms. Hannah, you go back then, they were siphoning off our general state aid to the tune of like 40-something million, and we were like, we need our money, but and we had delayed payments from the state, right? And so those years, we had to manage with limited resources, but the way that we shifted in our budgeting practices enabled us to be able to manage that, and not only manage that, but to have enough cash on hand that the newspaper came and interviewed the superintendent, and they lauded Waukegan on why you don't have to go out for, you remember you interviewed with the newspaper, why you don't have to go out for a loan when everybody else is going out to get, line of credit. And that's because we were managing it.
And we don't want to do that.
And so we're not where we were then.
Can you tell me approximately how much we were spending on interest when we were at that point?
On when, I'm sorry?
For the tax anticipation warrants, what were we
Oh,
spending
my
on interest?
goodness. Brian, do you remember? We were getting tax anticipation warrants just to make payroll.
I remember that.
We couldn't make payroll.
But the
And
interest,
so I don't know what the interest rates were back then, but we don't want to do tax anticipation warrants.
Not at all.
And we're not currently in a position that we have to do that right now. We're not there. And I think with continued discussions internally and monitoring what is happening at the state level and the federal level and prioritization, which is what we're doing right now, I think that we can weather this storm like we weathered it before.
I just wanted to commend you because you always come with calculations, when we are doing those contracts, you project the numbers with the anticipation of that increase every year, because it's not just the salary, it's also the benefits that increase, right? And so I want to commend you because, like you said, you were already prepared. We already knew that that was going to go up. So thank you for that. And thank you for staying abreast to everything that's going on at the federal and state level so that you can have these calculations as conservative as possible, knowing the limited information that we know.
Thank you. It's a team effort, superintendent board, and obviously my finance team. We work hard to review that stuff. We have a lot of long nights looking at it, making sure that we're staying apprised of what is happening and working with legal to interpret what's going on at the federal level. Any other questions?
I arrived when tax anticipation warrants were going out. Mr. Kiskela said, let's ride, took me there to the bank. So I understand. We ain't going back, as they
We
say.
ain't going back.
So the board needs to be commended, superintendent needs to be commended for being very strategic. And I keep using that word. It's not just a word, it's a process.
Absolutely.
It is a process, and it does work. Believe me, I've lived through it. It does work. So with that, if there are no questions on this, if you have questions at the end, we'll give you an opportunity to make sure we answer you so you're all fully as informed as possible. I'm going to yield the floor to, are you next, Mr. Loza? We're going to go through general state aid and some more specifics as we spiral you down on the budget.
Thank you, Andy. Good evening, everyone. The next slide is the general state aid evidence-based funding. And we've gone back to 2014 and tracked what we've received. Back then it was 82 million, and we go through 2024 actual 156 million. This year we're allocated 161,840,000, and next year's projection with the 4.1% increase is 168 million. Now this is after the Learn Charter gets their little allocation. They get their money off the top. This is after Learn Charter.
Mr. Loza, is theirs going up this year again?
What's that?
Is their allocation going up? I think it was about 8 million last year.
I think we're projecting that their enrollment's gonna go up, so
Yeah.
if that's the case, then yeah, that's gonna go up as well. But that's not even in here. This is after Learn Charter
It's after, okay.
is taken out.
That's
Mr.
good.
Loza, as I was looking at the chart, back in 2021,
Yeah,
there, that 138,756,763 dollars, that was lower than 2020 and still lower than 2023. Wait, which one am I looking at? Yeah, 22. Yeah, what happened right there?
it's, what I can guess is that it's 2021, and that was when COVID was happening, and
Okay,
I don't know if that's what it was, but that's my guess.
So the
Is that
state had
the-
less funding to provide, is what I'm
is that less money?
Yep.
Even though we got our.
The feds gave us
That was,
more.
it was less funding, yeah,
It
but
was
I'm
less
guessing it
funding.
might have been from COVID.
It kind of doesn't make sense when we got all that money, but we didn't get it before, and it was included all the way up to 2024. And so I'm just trying to get the rationale as to what happened.
The decrease. in
Mr. Chris,
students.
in the 2021 school year,
Okay,
nobody registered for kindergarten. Nobody came, so our enrollment went way down for the 2021 school year
okay,
because parents of kindergartners waited until first grade, second grade, third grade before they brought them to
legal
school.
requirement. Yeah.
So
Okay.
we went through quite a dip from
Okay.
1920 and 2021 for the actual enrollment count.
okay,
Thank you,
thank you
Mr.
very
Christensen.
much.
Oh, that explains it.
Thank
Sure.
you very much. I know that.
Any other questions on that? All right, we'll move on to the next slide. So in the 2026 overview of the budget, we've got spending increases. We factored wages based on negotiated contracts and non-union personnel raises, as well as curriculum purchases and socio-emotional programs. The budget total notes the $327,303,000. That's for expenditures, and that's a projected drop of 1.7% from the 2025 budget. The spending decreases, we've got life, HMO, and dental insurance are flat this year, and PPO plans went down 2.3%. And then we've got the capital improvements. We'll be using a good share of the monies from the bond issue for that, so that should help.
Sorry, I have a quick question just because we're on that. So if that 18 million is over the next 4 years, that's if we were to average it out roughly the 4.5. So with the capital improvement fund number 60, there's an increase of 1.6 million projected for 2026. Is there a reason we're not pushing that closer to a quarter of the remaining funds left?
We've got some capital improvements that are noted, and we'll have some slides towards the end of this presentation that will talk about that.
Okay.
And I know for 26, I think there's $8 million out there for capital projects. A lion's share of that is still undefined projects at this point. All right, going to property tax extension history. This one is an interesting slide. If you see over on the far right-hand side, the column, you'll notice that in 2018, $52,418,000 of property tax revenues. In 19, the same amount. 20, the same amount. And then 21, it went up, 21 was the same amount. 22, it went up slightly, 300,000, I think due to the PTAB recapture. And we've been keeping it level ever since. So it's been, property tax has been level since 2018. And that's the one major revenue source for the district. Okay,
Thought
the
we were
next
going to get a
slide.
plug from Ms. Polk.
What?
I was making a joke. We can
Oh.
keep going.
The next slide denotes the effect due to keeping it level, and we've lost approximately $35 million as we left the money on the table, so to speak, from 2019 on. You want to speak to that?
Oh, yes.
I thought you were coming. I was just too early.
We cannot afford to leave property taxes on the table anymore. In light of what we're presenting to you tonight, with the uncertainty around finances, I think that the board and the superintendent could be commended for the several years that we kept it level. But $35 million is a lot of money to leave on the table. And we could never recapture that. And what we've lost is that tax base. And so that's lost forever. And so I'm really, really asking the Board of Education to reconsider leaving the taxes level. I think that we have greatly supported the community of which I am a part. I'm a taxpayer. But $35 million is a lot of money. And we wanted to make sure the superintendent and all of the administrators wanted you to be aware of just what that decision has cost us over the
Mr. Vukovic, you want to say something?
Ms. Hannah.
Why don't you come up to the podium so everybody can
Yeah,
hear?
I was going to ask.
As a property owner in the district, I love the tax rate. It's great. But past boards have kind of boxed you guys and future boards in because, as Brian said, you can't recoup that. If a home rule government such as the city, they could get that back in 1 year or 2 years. That's not an issue, but you guys can't. You look at that number, what was it, 18,000 per student is what this district is spending between property taxes and basically state and some federal dollars. Now, when you look at Waukegan's tax rate for the bills that just came out, it's, I think, $4.36 per hundred. It's a great rate. 50% of the tax bill. 50%. You go just to Warren and Woodland, they're 60%. Their tax rate is 6.4, $2 more. Our poor friends up at Zion, their 2/3 of the tax bill goes to the school districts. They're at 8.4, double our rate here. Double.
Yeah, they're high.
Now, Gray's Lake, I think they're about 14,000 per student in their elementary district and about 17,000 they're spending in their high school district. Their tax rate in Gray's Lake, their combined rate is $8 per hundred, double what ours is. So I don't know what they're getting from the state, but I know in the past you guys have tried to apply for some relief on property tax. You'll never get it with these tax rates. The rest of the county will get it before Waukegan does because the board has kept the rate down, which is a good thing. But,
We don't qualify.
So are you asking us to raise them?
no, I'm just saying, that's something you need to look at the next time because
And we're not gonna
you
qualify
are
for it.
blessed with a lot of money from the state.
Yes.
That's really why you have money in the bank.
Right.
I mean, you guys all work hard, I give that, but if those numbers hadn't increased year after year from the state of Illinois,
Right.
you'd be just like you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
15 years,
tax
absolutely.
anticipation warrants. So the change in that taxing formula from the state of Illinois is what has really put this district
Gave us a lot
in,
of money.
along with good financial. I'll give you that too. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Vukovich. Ms. Lensing?
So this is always going to be a complicated conversation, especially when we're looking at communities like ours. But I think even now, when we look at the federal level, what's happening across the nation with the increased cost of everything, groceries are up, tariffs are going to impact the cost of other goods, even down to clothing our children. Our homelessness rates are going to go up. So we're going to tax people more and potentially put them further into poverty. So that's the balance that we really need to understand in this community before we make big decisions.
Absolutely.
Like, yes, I understand $35 million. That could have done a lot in this school district, but we also need to have the results to back it up. Right? We need to build that bond with our community so that they trust us that if we do raise our taxes, that it's going to be put to good use and it's going to impact our students, which impacting our students then betters our community, brings in businesses, brings in new homeowners, et cetera. So this is a conversation that I think we need to have a very detailed conversation about as a board.
Absolutely, because,
Would you please come to the podium?
As the board and the community, that this is something that we should always be aware of, right? So I think that Ms. Polk and her team should always bring this information to us. It's always good to know what's on the table, and maybe at some point, you guys need to think about what do we need to do, right? Because that is a lot of money, but I am with you, though, Christy. This community cannot stand additional property taxes. But it's good to know how much is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I don't know if we are there yet, but as I went through the slides and everything, one of the things that was a little troubling to me was that the staffing was increasing, when our student enrollment was going down. And that, the K through 8 enrollment has decreased by just about 2,600 students, since 2016, and that, 9 through 12, there was a 380, a student decrease. And so we also have to worry about, if we are using, well, not we, if the state and everybody, if they're using the enrollment in order to, appropriate funds to districts, then how will this decrease in our student enrollment impact our revenues
Is
that
this
are
going to
gonna
be
be
covered in
coming
a
in?
future slide?
Yes,
Okay, well,
we'll get to
okay.
that.
all righty.
May I sorry guys, this are all new. May I respectfully ask that if we can just, for the team and for their focus, if we can address the slide that's before us. We will get to that slide where we will look at staffing, et cetera. But if we can take them as they come, so the team can not lose their track of thought, for lack of a better word.
All right, moving on, I'm going to turn the floor over to Nick Chin, and he's going to talk about successes and highlights.
Good evening, everyone. All right, continuing on. So with all that said, let's look at some successes and highlights. We have basically a top 10 list for you. So starting with number 1, in our pursuit of that $30 million construction bond, we were pleasantly informed that our Standards and Poor's rating went from an A to an A+ stable. So that was quite a nice thing for us. Number 2, we have been the recipient of the Association of School Business Officials Meritorious Budget Award for fiscal year 2024-2025. We have submitted a Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting to the Association of School Business Officials International and the Government Finance Officers Association. And we are awaiting determination on those awards. The district has won those awards in the past. Number 4, as Ms. Polk has pointed out earlier this evening, we have maintained a recognition designation in our Illinois State Board of Education financial profile rating for the past 7 years, since 2018. Number 5, as you're all aware, we've negotiated competitive salaries for staff. You'll note that in the smaller print in red, in particular with teachers, a 31.14% increase over 4 years. And with the Waukegan professional support staff, a 39% increase over 3 years. Moving on to the next slide.
Is that including benefits? Is that why it's higher? Just salaries.
Because so we increase roughly 22%, but each sequential year, they are gaining more on top of, with every year of experience, they're going up in step.
Yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. Number 6, the Wraparound Center up and running, quite an achievement there. 7, the Stronger Connections After School program, which is largely being funded by a grant that we've won. Number 8, Ms. Polk has spoken to this in previous meetings, approximately $80 million in capital improvements completed across the district, most of that focusing on school facilities, of course, that house our students and staff.
There's still outstanding stuff, right?
Of course, yes. Number 9, we've done a lot of curriculum writing and alignment, implementation and progress monitoring. 10, significant technology upgrades. Of course, our sustained one-to-one device initiative with students, and of course, providing all of the necessary technology to staff to best serve and meet the needs of those students.
Mr. Chin, before we go on, number 6 for a wraparound center, can you remind our community how much of this was paid out of district funds versus grant monies?
So, in terms of the facility?
The wraparound center.
Yeah, so I am aware that, yeah, that would help.
We got an $800,000 grant for services. For the total building, we got $2.5, $1 million, and $750,000.
In grant.
In grants.
So that's a huge thank you to our grant writer, Miss Tate, for getting all of those funds that didn't come out of our budget, but was extra monies to provide services for our community, but then also benefit other aspects of the district outside of that.
Yeah, she was instrumental in submitting that with the help of others in the district, but she was instrumental in doing that, and we commend her for that.
Wonderful. Because that's a lot of money.
And the 2.5.
Okay.
We're just waiting on the 750. That's the one we spoke about earlier.
Yes, that's excellent news.
Okay, so just as a general high-level overview of some of the figures for the district, we're projecting into the next year 13,320 students, and of course we have the 22 schools listed below. All right. So on this slide, we can see the title, Student Enrollment Decline. So we can see that in the line graph on the left, we start at 2016, the graph goes all the way to 2025, and then we have the corresponding figures in the table to the right. And so just going from point to point, if we go from school year 2016, the pre-K through 12 enrollment at that time was 16,685. And again, just going point to point all the way to the end, school year 2025, okay, we're looking at an enrollment of 13,640. That's approximately a 3,000 student decrease. Next slide.
And why are we, that's what I want to know.
I would like to state also that the information came from the fall housing report filed with ISB. Yeah, questions?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted, and that's probably a Mr. Christensen question as to what has caused this decline of student enrollment.
Good evening. The details for this are attached to agenda item C. So if you want to take a look at some other time to agenda item C, you'll get the details as to which year and which school and what they all were to kind of go through the details.
Really?
So we've gone through this, we've had fewer enrollments, fewer students, probably since like 2017 or 2018, as we kind of go in and through. So you kind of see on the chart from the 2019 school year to the 2025 school year, that it's been slowly declining over these past few years. And it's a combination of lots of things with students not moving to our area. The state of Illinois population has been decreasing. It's been a decline over these past few years. In fact, it started at the elementary level, and we saw it kind of go up. Because back in 2018, 2019, the high school was still increasing. And now those decreases are hitting the high school. So now we're decreasing across all grade levels, and it's still going down.
But we also have more competition with Learn and with St. Martin de Porres or Cristo Rey. So students have more options locally than they did before.
Yes.
Well, so across the state, student enrollment has gone down by 11%. Based on these numbers, it could be, 22%. So that's basically double. We're losing double here in Waukegan. And I think that's the concern is
Right.
if we were on trend with the state, understandable, because across the state, families are choosing charter schools, et cetera. But it seems to be of a higher impact to our community.
I agree with you, Ms. Lensing, but I also think that we need to also look at our mobility rates. This, I'm going to say, are the customers we serve in the sense of students, right? So undocumented students, we know nationally that number, I believe is, I want to say it's a little higher. I'm not sure. I didn't look at that. I was just checking that out. So there's a number of factors: birth rates, the mobility rates, school choice. A number of them play into it, but it's definitely something that I think we should take a deeper dive into to see what exactly is impacting those numbers.
And I think we should also look by county, because we were even in jeopardy of losing some seats, because there's so much decrease within our own county.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Okay, next slide, please. So here, corresponding staffing level and some fine detail about what comprises these numbers, specifically in regard to 2025, comes in a subsequent slide. Excuse me. So again, basically going from point to point, you can see there's kind of a U shape generally, with the exception of 2019. But we can see that in 2016, we're looking at 2,300 staff members. And then again, if we go all the way to 2025, all the way over to the right, that is 2,317. So on the next slide, what we will see is the two side by side. So to the left, we have the enrollment, the same line graph from the enrollment from the previous slide, and then we have that next to the staffing level bar graph. And again, so in 2016, just to remind everyone, the enrollment in 2016 was 16,685. The staffing level in 2016 was 2,300. Going all the way to the present day, to 2025, that pre-K through 12 enrollment in 2025 is 13,640. That's that 3,000 student decrease. And then when we look at the corresponding 2025 staffing level, it is 2,317.
Then why is that going up?
Oh, right.
If our enrollment is going down, why is there a need for increased staffing? Because
Again, during COVID, remember, during COVID, we needed to address some of our social emotional needs. And so we hired staff based upon those needs. And now it's being discussed to see how we need to pivot. Those discussions are happening as we speak.
I'm sorry,
So-
what do you mean by pivot? Like pivot away from SEL in our
If it's a
district?
prioritization, if those positions are still needed because of student needs, then that should be prioritized within the district, and then other things would obviously not be prioritized. But those type hard discussions are being had right now to say, how do we maintain fiscal stability within the district, yet meet the needs of the students? And so that has always been what we've been required to do, and that is to outline all of the needs within the district and then discuss what is a priority. When we, as a district, decided to give raises, and that is admirable. That was and still is admirable. But when we did it at that time, we said to the Board of Education and the community that if we give these significant raises, then we would have to adjust somewhere else. So now we're faced with those decisions. If the students continue to need the socio-emotional need, interventions, if they continue to need other things that are outlined in the school improvement plans, as well as the plans that are submitted by the departments, then those hard discussions, very difficult discussions, have to be had. Yes, sir.
Yes, wondered about the staffing levels here. Does that include any contract?
That's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
It does not. These are only staff within the district.
Included that. We have a lot of contract.
That would be included in our purchase service numbers. And all of those things, the total budget, all of it, not just staffing, but purchase services, equipment, everything would have to be evaluated and prioritized.
Oh, okay, go ahead, because I got questions more about that staffing, but go ahead.
Oh, were you gonna go?
Can I jump in?
Go ahead. It's too loud and now it's not on.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I'm just trying to get the right, perfect move, right where it's at. So I know, one of the conversations that the executive team is having weekly is looking at the number of employees that we have in our district, and their touch points for our students and what we need and what we don't need. What we were very cautious of is that we did not want to have a rift, as many other districts, as you see across the state of Illinois, are actually having at this time. So we're looking at, as people retire, how do we fill in those seats? How do we close sections? Because we know, my personal opinion is that any district should try to avoid a rift as much as possible. At times, that's impossible and improbable. But at this time right now, we feel that we can move our employees into their current seats to downsize. And that is something that we are intentionally working on this year with the executive team and having those meetings around that. That is why you're not seeing a rift before you. We do know that affects employee morale in general. It spreads fear, and it leaves uncertainty for this school community. And that is something that we do not want to impart on our employees. So we're taking a different approach on how we're doing that. And when we're looking at the retirements or the certifications, or even our recruitments overseas. When Mr. Figueroa went out this time to recruit, the amount of teachers that he's looking at is not as large in the amount of people he is trying to attract. We're being very specific in the people that we need to fill the seats that is harder to fill in the vacancies.
Sorry. I would also like to look at a comparison between contracted versus staff, because we know we gave that increase, and part of my reason for giving that increase, besides the fact that I fully believe our teachers and staff deserve it, is because it's also a way to attract permanent staff, right? And that's why we've had to contract out, because we don't have the permanent staff. So it looks like we've been successful in recruiting more annual staff, but I would like to see, as our staffing levels go up, are our contracted rates going down?
Right, and we need to figure out where where the staffing needs to increase. Because as I was looking, and it goes further into the presentation with the diverse learning. And
even the licensing, right? As ISBE's been changing their rules for licensing, more people have been qualifying to be able to be staff
That's a good point, Ms. Fabian. And it is something that we're looking at.
with us,
even
because
when
now
we-
they're now certifiable where they weren't. So now you can be a para with just a high school degree, with that short-term para licensing, which we never had before. Somebody had to have an associate's degree or pass that test. So more people are able to, same thing with even
Substitute
our
teachers.
long-term subs, yeah. So as licensing requirements change and allow for more people to be able to be in a classroom, you're going to be able to find more staff, right? More
Which
people are
will
gonna
cut-
qualify.
well, let me go back. That's a good point you're making. So what we will get to the board is a report of outside agencies. So in the sense of agency paras, agency secretaries, agency psychologists that we may be able, I mean, I'm just throwing a couple of names out there. That's going
Or
to
different unions.
decrease the cost with the contracts, which will bring in to the employee group. So Gwen, for our next time, can we get the board a comparison of what we're seeing there?
Yes, ma'am.
In the areas that we're speaking of?
Yes.
Superintendent, in these discussions, are we also looking at streamlining the number of contracts we have? Because there's organizations like PSI Solutions that have been at the conferences we've gone to, and they cover
Everything, yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And they're like, we could be the one service provider and we'll get everybody for you. That minimizes the number of contracts we have. Because I know, poor Dr. Bubblitz is like, I need another contract because this agency isn't giving me the staff I need, and these kids still need the services, so we still need to get, X, Y, Z. So he's like having to cast a wide net to catch people. So I'm just wondering, are we looking at alternate organizations so that we can streamline it and get one contract? So as we get more permanent staff, we need less from the one contract provider instead of handling
But the other
multiples.
point you just made is Dr. Bublitz has also come up here and said that there has been increased need for services in his department with students that just need more paras, right? So that's also going to increase our staffing.
Right, but the
no,
organizations
yeah.
are also not fully
They're not
staffing.
fully-
So
yeah.
we're saying we need these people, and
we
they're
get
saying,
one-
yes, we
one
can give
place,
it,
a
and
one-stop
then they
shop.
don't.
I agree.
So if we can, if we can
I
just
agree.
minimize, that'd be great.
And if I can continue with
Oh,
this.
sorry.
1, 2, 3, count.
Oh, sorry.
Can I respond to Ms. Lensing, please? So I do know that Dr. Cesario is having those conversations. We've looked at like different programs we have, and we're like, wait, this program can cover both of those. So that is the intentionality. However, we can always have more intentionality. And so noted. I just want to say it's noted. And I do see Dr. Cesario sit in the back shaking his head.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say is that, and we'll get further down into it, but if we are over at this point, looking at the presentation, we are somewhat kinda per se overstaffed versus the enrollment, and those staffing individuals, I was just wondering if, like with in Dr. Bublitz's department, are some of those staff members able to move over into the
A different specialty? Oh, I see.
the diverse learner department, where we like you say, we wouldn't have to riff anybody, but we also would be placing them if they're certified in special education.
That's where our grant comes in for the.
Right.
I just want to
If they-
clarify
Teacher
something.
Yeah.
I don't know if the slide says that we're overstaffed.
I agree with that. Thank
Well,
you.
that I'm looking at,
I think
That
if you-
goes to the
Enrollment
comment we
versus-
made about need.
Can I jump in real quick? I think if you would ask any principal, they would say, I'm definitely
could
not
always more.
overstaffed, I need more. I
Every
also
teacher would
want
want a smaller
to
class size.
say that I don't want us to have a perception that, and I'm not saying anyone said that these are all administrators, right? Because this is all the staff we have in our district. I also want to remind the board that we have specialty staff in schools. We have culture and climate in certain buildings. We have instructional coaches. We have ISLs. I mean, so there's like reading specialists and math specialists. And so those are direct
ASL
services that,
interpreters,
right,
yeah.
that tutors, so there's a lot of different components there that are front-facing services to our students, right? So when we're looking at this, what I'm talking more about is if we need 10 English teachers, freshman English teachers, and we have 12, right? How are we working those numbers to ensure we don't want to take that extra support as far as our coaches, our tutors, our reading specialists. We call them something different now, but there's a misnomer out there that we don't have any reading specialists. We do. We have math specialists, so we don't want to take those direct services away from students, but all those numbers play into here. So when I say we're looking at numbers, we're looking at how many first grade mono teachers that we have, and we may have 20, but we only need 10. So now how do we work those numbers around? That maybe I have a need in third grade where I can move those people there so that we're not having those rift or those displacement, and we're keeping the building environment stable to support the student needs. That's more what I'm speaking about.
And and you said the exact same thing. I said just in a different way.
Okay.
You know, because if we have some staff that can go over
Yeah.
into the
But it's even
diverse
thinking
learner.
of like our preschoolers, right? Our preschools have to have the teacher and the para.
Right.
So we've increased that, so that means you're going to double the staff in that building if we're increasing in that area.
Right.
I think the example
It's
was just if
looking
there's
at-
movable staff to
Yeah.
the
Right.
DL department.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
As an
Making sure
example.
people are,
Yeah.
that we're using, you are utilizing them.
Right, because we got a lot of staff requests. Okay.
openings,
Oh, yeah, that's-
And it's in
That's
the.
embedded in this
Yeah.
one.
And the majority of them are in the diverse learner. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chen, continue, please.
Thank you. And here is the specific breakdown of who or what all of these positions are for 2025. This includes both the certificated and non-certificated staff. So you will see that there are administrators, teachers, custodians. It's all on here, and you'll see that totals to 2,317.32.
I'm going to pause right here. So as a parent of 3 younger children that constantly hurt themselves, seeing that we have 22 schools and only 18.4 nurses, that's a big safety issue for me, because you can't plan when a kid's going to have an accident. You can't plan when they're going to have a seizure or an episode or anything that needs a nurse. So I'm just hoping the board can support an initiative to ensure that we have a dedicated nurse for each school location.
Ms. Lindsay, I completely agree with you.
And we used to.
Nursing is one of those hard to fill areas. So, let us please get the number of nurses. This may be how many we have on the books, but we may have 30 vacancies. Just, that's a hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
But attracting them and getting them is something different versus us
Understood.
having the position. So
Right.
we'll come back to the board with what we have versus what's vacant so that you can get a full picture on there.
But I believe, can we also look at the contract, though? Because I believe it's also by caseload on some of these positions, so that's why there's itinerant roles, where there's not one in every building. They have to go to a couple buildings because the contract is written by caseload.
Yeah, and I also know, I also know that we do have contracted nurses that wouldn't show up here, that would be on the contract one. So an example would be Oakdale, they have a contracted nurse.
Okay.
However, just got their certification and is going to be working for Waukegan Public Schools and making that their home. So congratulations, Ms. Graves, on that big achievement. So we're hoping as they go through the system that they choose Waukegan as our home, so we know she did.
Okay, perfect.
And just real quick with the point, like you said, 18.4, is that because they're working a part-time position? Like you can't be a fourth of a person, a sixth of a person. So when we get to the decimals,
Or
is that
they're-
because they're not a full-time employee?
Or they're multiple, like,
Got it.
across
People, and I
schools.
don't think that they're full-time.
So it's
So, yeah.
because the position is not a 1.0 position.
That is correct.
Gotcha.
So, and it's not that they're changing locations throughout the day, because that
Some
would
of
still.
them are
Itinerant.
mobile, right? Some of them are transient. Yes, some of them are transient.
Okay. Okay, we'll table that.
These are filled positions.
Yeah.
These are filled, not open positions. It's only filled positions. All right? So you
My
could,
concern is I want a data point saying we have a full-time nurse, either split across 2 people, 3 people, whatever, at a school during the day, but we'll table
I'll
that.
also commend Waukegan for that because not all districts have nurses in each school. Some of them just have them like per the district. So I'll commend us for even, for that foresight of having that many because
We used to have this,
we used to have
all
sa-
the schools, particularly our elementary. I got a question in reference to, it's titled, and I'm going to presume that this 22 under Dean is actually culture and climate
Okay.
Yes,
individuals.
yes.
Well, are we going to class them as deans or are we going to class them as culture and climate?
so they're labeled as deans, but they are culture and climate.
Can we adjust that, or there's
We-
no?
we
wiggle
can
room?
Well,
change
I
it.
think
Okay.
there's
We can change it.
requirements for them to actually hold the title D.
And most of them have their masters, and they're pursuing that type 75. Yeah, that's.
That is, I will say, one of the reasons why we went with culture and
Yeah.
climate, because there is specific certification that they need to hold, and you're absolutely right, Ms. Hannah, a dean versus culture and climate. I do want to acknowledge, though, many of our culture and climates, since holding these positions, have gone back to school, whether to get their bachelor's degree, now to get their master's degree, and to get their certification to hold these positions. So, which is really good because we're seeing our staff expand on their professional learning in these positions, and which also allows them to hold other positions.
But I think if the intentionality was moving away from the word dean to really have it be more positive, where we're looking at
Oh,
PBIS
absolutely.
and
Yes.
having it be culture and climate, then we should stay consistent. Not so much because of the certification issue, which absolutely that's a great achievement for them to be doing, but I think it's the verbiage. If we made the intentional shift so that it would be more positive and restorative versus dean always has that negative connotation.
No, you're absolutely right. So that was another aspect when we changed the titles so that it was more positive mindset versus punitive. And we'll change the title in the system.
Thank you.
All right, next slide, please. So on this slide, there is a link. So if you haven't looked at it yet, there is a link that takes you to a detailed listing of new position requests, which is inclusive of any supplemental pay requests. As is stated in bold on the slide, this is currently under review. It continues to be under review. So for any viewers at home that haven't looked, please download that file and click on it, and you can see all of those details
But also some of them would be covered by grants. They wouldn't be covered under, it wouldn't be coming out of our district funding.
I think that would have been.
That is correct.
And I think that's what, you know, especially like our stars, for example, like that should be kind of denoted somewhere so that people understand that it is part of the, like you have to have that position in order to fulfill that grant.
Absolutely. So when we bring that back to the board, Ms. Polk, if we can denote what actually does come from the grant, maybe a color code or something, because as I looked at this too, that was in my mind also.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Mr. Luosa to continue with the presentation.
Jen? The next slide we're going to talk about is we continue having students with needs. We have, on the left side, we have students living in poverty from 2016 through 2025, 51%, and then we jump up to 70%. So it's ranging between 64% and 73%, and right now in 25, it's 68% of students living in poverty in our district. Percentage of students with special needs has been pretty steady, 13% and 14% in the last 9-10 years.
Mr. Loza, can you go back? What happened between 2016 and 2017 that would account for that big difference?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened.
Is there a difference maybe in the way that it was calculated?
Did we also have an increase in students?
Students living in poverty?
This information came from the fall housing report. I'm not sure what caused it, but this is from the ISB's website.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, this next slide discusses diverse learners, and we've pulled numbers off of the annual financial report from 2016 through 2024, and we're using a budget for 25. And you can see over on the right-hand side, we've gone from 29 million in 2016 to 46 million in actuals in 2024. So it's quite a rise in diverse learner costs over the last 9 years or so.
Sorry, really quickly. I just want to say it for the public or confirm. We are heavily monitoring the status of the IDEA grants, right?
Oh, the what grant?
IDEA.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
There's not much information though.
I mean, like, my only concern is that we are budgeting for 42.5+ million. And there's just too many question marks around that for me to be comfortable. I'll leave it at that.
And especially to piggyback on Ms. Lindsay, especially, and I'm hoping, Superintendent, sooner or later, we're going to get some kind of presentation from Dr. Bublitz as to the shift of that executive order where IDEA and all of that is going under another department. So at some point, hopefully we can get some kind of brief presentation on how that's going to impact us. With it being shifted from the Department of Education over into Health and Human Services. Yeah.
You get the IDEA.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, and we have the IDEA grants approximately $6 million. Plus we have claims that's about $2 million.
Yeah.
Also, a part of our evidence-based funding is dedicated for special education.
Right.
So that's how this is paid for. Not all of it, obviously,
Right.
but a large portion of it.
My concern is losing that roughly 8 million is
Mm-hmm.
just further impacting our budget. That's
Losing 8 million. What is 8?
If,
If the feds
the
don't.
1.9 claims, if those aren't paid for,
Okay,
on top of the IDEA grants of 6,
okay,
that takes me to roughly 8.
yeah. So the last time that we briefed, and again, we're in close consultation with legal,
Yes.
Title I and IDEA were not on the chopping block. We don't know what is going to happen with
Okay.
these executive orders.
That's
So
my
we,
concern.
again, and I have to
Just
say it, and I
executive
have to say it again.
Yeah,
We have assumptions
you're right.
that we're putting in these numbers.
Yeah.
And when we had the budget committee meeting, the superintendent said it so eloquently, I believe, that we should not be impulsive in making changes. I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah.
We should not be impulsive and make those changes, and we don't know, we really don't know what's going to happen with
Right.
the executive orders.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the reason why we put these numbers in here, because we have these students.
Right.
So a decision, we're making, we said it is really difficult for us to make decisions about staffing, about what we're going to cut. If we have to educate these students and we don't get the 6 million or the 8 million that you're
coming
referring
from
to,
somewhere.
it has to come from somewhere. So we're going to have further difficult discussions. So the question would be on the table for the Board of Education with directive to the superintendent. Do you want to make those decisions now and then find out that you didn't have to do it?
Yeah,
So-
no, I get it. It's just,
I think it's a call to action.
It's noted.
Because it is an executive order, it doesn't carry weight until Congress acts on that budgeting and funding. So I think our families, if they're really concerned, should be contacting their legislators and really pushing to ensure that we are funding our public schools.
I do want to reassure this board that the administration is very cognizant of the executive orders and are constantly looking to see what is transpiring at the national level, but also at the state level, not only within our state, but surrounding states, blue states versus red states. So we're looking at all that, actually constantly.
yeah, because educating a child is not red or blue.
Absolutely. But you do see trends, right?
Yes.
So it is important for us to see where the trends are transpiring and what the direction they're going in. As of right now, my professional opinion is that we keep the course, we stay steadfast, and that we ensure that we're providing the quality education to the students of Waukegan with the budget that we currently have.
we gotta see more better results from our students.
More questions on this slide? Move on to the next slide is English language learners. And we're noting the percentage of students from 2019 to 2025 going up from 36% to 56%. And the number of students from 5,585 in 2019 to 7,600 in 2025.
But this includes those that are quote-unquote exited but still in dual language? Is that why there's such a huge increase, not just those that are coming in? This is just those that qualify. Okay.
And just to go back to the staffing piece, right? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we definitely need to ensure that this department is fully staffed, because I've had board reprimands with students who had very little English skills, and so them being employable for even like a summer job is very difficult. So in order to ensure that they're going to be able to be successful post-graduation with whichever path they're choosing, we need to ensure we're embedding those skill sets so that they're hireable, because many places will require English. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we need to make sure that this is fully staffed.
And one other question, Ms. Ambrosio question.
Dr.
Superintendent.
Ambrosio.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Ambrosio.
Let's give claps.
Yeah. My question is, are we exiting students out of bilingual?
So it depends on the grade level. So we have a dual language program, and the purpose of the dual language program is to build biliteracy. So when students achieve the exit rate that they need to exit, based on the state's guidelines, parents get a notification that their child has exited and they have the right to come out into monolingual classes, but the majority of our parents want their children to remain in the dual language program.
Okay, I get that, but does it hinder the students more?
Being in dual language? No.
Well, not being in dual language, but if they still have the designation as bilingual. I mean, and maybe the term bilingual needs to be reviewed and, yeah, they have to be defined or what have you, because I don't think, well, I know that the program was not devised, right, for students to spend their entire school experience in the program, but to integrate. Okay, wait, I'm hearing no, but
So what's the EL approach? I think we need to clarify, right?
yeah, or something, because okay, so we're not exiting students
Well,
out of
TPI.
those programs anymore, Dr. Ambrosio?
So the students are no longer classified as EL, so they wouldn't show up in these numbers as EL students. They're considered exited, but they're dual language students. And so the students, the parents have the right to ask if they'd like to continue in dual language, which is our board policy, which is dual language. So we continue to provide them biliteracy, so they get both languages all throughout the day, all the way until 12th grade, to achieve that seal of biliteracy.
That's you.
So I think you're thinking of the TBE program, is where in the past we used to move them from primarily all Spanish, then integrate them into English, and then it was just all English. Which is similar to our TPI program, which is we still have, and those numbers are included in here, because we don't say bilingual students, they're English learners. We have students, some that speak multiple languages, and then once they have mastered proficiency is why they're quote-unquote exited out.
Right.
But we don't, to my knowledge, we're not really doing TBE anymore. No, so there's different methodologies. It all falls under, EL and strategies of how to teach EL. So we do have TPI, and those are our students who speak another language that isn't Spanish, that there's not enough students to create a classroom. So, for example, Arabic, Polish, they're all mixed. So those students would eventually be quote-unquote exited out into a monolingual.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the supports for.
And speaking about the bilateral.
The seal of biliteracy?
Seal, yeah, that we, I would love, and I'm sure the community would love to see all students involved in the possibility of getting that seal of biliteracy, where they're speaking multiple languages. And I know I've heard Ms. Briscoe for a number of years talk about the African-American students, getting the, becoming bilingual through dual languages and stuff. And I would love to see more students receive that seal of biliteracy.
That's going to come down to staffing, right? And so my hope is that a lot of our current teachers use the teacher grant to get
paras?
yeah, the paras, like to get the acquisition of the Spanish language themselves, so that we have the staff able to support it. Because I have a kid going into middle school, and we have to essentially coast for the next 3 years with dual language with one class, because there's not enough staff to support the advanced learning environment in both languages.
Right,
So,
I get that.
yeah.
And
So
that's
it's
where-
definitely a goal
Yeah.
that I love, but like there's a lot of pieces
And-
that we need to move the levers on.
And to be clear, they don't have to be in a dual language classroom to apply for the seal of biliteracy. So we have students that get the seal in languages that we don't even teach.
Yes, because they have it.
Yeah, and our
Because they
students
can,
need to
like,
know
if at home they're doing it,
Our students
they can
need to
pass the
know
test and
that.
show proficiency, they'll get that seal.
Yeah.
I don't know if the students know that they are
There's usually
able
a
to get
presentation
that.
every year.
We got a question out there.
Dr. Ambrosio, do you want to address the knowledge of students in regards to the seal of biliteracy?
Sure. So the seal of biliteracy is only offered at the high school level. And so the high school level, we provide the Apple test to our students, and that's high levels of academic, whatever the language is, high levels of academic Spanish, or high levels of academic Vietnamese, or whatever the language is that they're looking for. I did also want to add that this year is the highest year that we've had students that achieve the seal of biliteracy. We have almost 100 students that achieve the seal of biliteracy.
That's amazing news.
And that's
And not
all
all
to our
districts
world
have-
language teachers at the high school. And of course, the bilingual teachers at the high school, all of the teachers really. But we have to give a lot of credit to them because they've worked very hard on getting our students to achieve that wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you, teacher. Wow.
And I also wanted to add that this year we started two-way, so we can have monolingual students as well participate in the dual language program. That's called our two-way program. We started at Oakdale. That's rolling up to kindergarten next year. And now we are also next year going to open up a classroom at Glenwood as well, starting at kindergarten.
Yeah.
Thank you for the detail.
Thank you. Okay, Brian. We took you all the way
Okay,
over
can we-
there. You got to preach.
We're talking budget, where the money's gonna go.
Right.
Okay, I also wanted to add, we do get TBE, but TBE comes through our evidence-based funding.
Okay.
And our newcomers as well. We also get funding for our newcomers
Next screen.
and our migrant students.
Okay, this details the costs of the English learners going back to 2016 through 2024 actuals, from $10,289,000 to $18,980,000 in 2024. The budget, we have $21 million in 2025. And just like was said, the footnote at the bottom, Title III contributes about $779,000 of revenue, $101,000 from the Emergency Immigrant Grant, which I think is called something different now, and the $6 million in TBE funds coming from evidence-based funding. All right, the proposed 25-26 budget, the current budget landscape. Pressures off the budget for capital needs from the bond issue. Pressure on the budget, increased payroll-related costs, increased students with greater needs serving within the district. Professional development for our teachers. Increased need for social and emotional supports particularly after COVID. Going to the salary and benefits projection, we're noting that education fund salaries are going to be $177.6 million and benefits of $26.7 million. Operations and maintenance, $3.8 million. Transportation fund, $472,000, and tort fund, $1,004,000. Total $183 million. We're projecting a 3.71% increase from FY25.
Hey, Brian, I'm sorry, Mr. Luosa, does the parochial schools provide any percentage of the transportation costs? Or do we just provide that straight out to them?
Just parochial or?
I know it's provided to them.
I don't know.
In other words, are we paying for transportation for parochial
No,
school
we are
students?
paying for that. I want to know if the parochial schools pay any percentage of that money that we have to pay.
Not as far as I know.
So,
Because if they live a mile and a half away from their school, we are required to transport them.
right.
We are, but it is a little different. So it has to be on a bus route that's in that way. It may not be directly dropped off right in front of the school. I only know this because we did a little bit of research. So I know Miss Williams isn't here, and it's a great question, Miss Hannah. I want to get the board all the facts surrounding that. So if you will give me some time, we will send something out. Mr. Moulton's in the back. I just know because we worked on this, and I'm like, why?
'Cause it's pace.
When
the
do we
pace
have to
buses
pay?
too, right?
Yes. But I think Ms. Hannah's talking more about our transportation, right? So give me a minute to flush all that out. I'm giving you a high level of what I remember off the top of my head, but there's many variables that play into that, and it's not like direct from door to door. It really depends on the situation or the bus stop, et cetera, the way it was explained to me. So we will come back and present that to the board.
Yeah,
Mr. Moulton, if you could make a note of that.
And if you could please include in there how many other private schools that we provide transportation for and or parts of our budget to them.
Okay.
Because I know we got a lot of different private schools and one charter school. And so how much money out of our budget does those schools encumber?
How much are we giving out?
Right.
Mr. Moulton, you do have the question, correct? Okay, if you can supply that information to Mr. Alazakis tomorrow, and he can get that to the board.
All right, moving on to operational supports and programs. I will turn it over to Mr. Moten, and he'll go over the Operation Supports and Programs Division that he supervises.
Okay. So I'll go over these, and if there's any questions, we could certainly ask for Mr. Moulton or Dr. Cesario to come up and provide more clarity. Looking at the operations, supports and programs, goals and action steps, you'll see the deputy is requesting $690,000 in Fund 10 and $30,000 in Fund 20, which is O&M. The details can be found for everything, all of the numbers that we're talking about tonight on the link at the bottom of the sheet. You'll see business and financial services, $150,000 in the education fund. But in Fund 30, you'll see that 4.3, and of course, that's our debt payments. So we have it under our area, but it's really debt. Crisis and safety has 1.7 or $1.8 million in request for goals, as human resources has 300, wraparound 240, transportation 115, operations and maintenance has 76,000, and Fund 60 for capital. You heard Mr. Chen talk about this earlier, that we reserved in the budget $8.6 million, of which only slightly over $3 million we have projects that's allocated. So the rest of it is contingencies in the event that other projects come up. Fund 90, we have 470,000, and transportation has 40,000. That's in Fund 40. Again, the details can be accessed on that link. If you have any questions, do you have any specific questions at this time related to goals and action steps for operations?
Well, okay, I don't know if it goes along with it. Okay, but I'm looking at it because I see human resources, and human resources means people, and people means money, and so where I'm tying all this in, as I was looking at different slides, I saw that that we are going to be allocating monies, right? And I didn't do the actual calculations because actually it wasn't really there. The dollar amounts were not there, but I see a lot of spaces for stipends. Okay, and that's problematic for me, because if we are paying employees and staff salaries, right? Why are we paying stipends for people to function in their jobs? Now, I know I've heard the phrase, oh, they go above and beyond. Well, that's kind of like work, you know? I mean, but just because you go over and above, that does not mean that you should be entitled to a $10, $15, $20,000 stipend. And so, Mr. President, I'm asking that we really look at that and we ask questions about that, okay? Because I just don't understand it. I mean, if you're getting a salary to do your job, why is there a need to constantly get stipends?
Okay, this $300,000 does not include salaries or benefits. It's non-salary benefits. So the sheet that we had that said superintendent under review, that's where those stipends were, and they are being reviewed.
Okay.
On that sheet, you'll see some that's red. Those are those that where the superintendent has already said no to those, but they're still under review. So I don't know.
So, and I can expand on that. So the stipends are not for going above and beyond the duty, right? The stipend, when you look at them, and depending on what it is because you're taking on extra duties outside of your job description. So I can give you one that we recently discussed. Miss Rita Tate, when we had a previous meeting where you said she would get a stipend because she took over the 21st Century Grant for a time when Mr. Gonzalez left. That grant was outside of her normal scope in her job description, so she did receive, would receive extra money for overseeing that grant because that went beyond her normal day. And the only reason I brought her up because that was one that we recently talked, probably 3 months ago, I think. Another one would be where we have base liaisons at schools. And these are people that may be paras that work throughout the day. And then in the evening, take on the face liaison where they're hosting, school events, are working with our face department with whether they just put on I want to say the Pan American event, but it was called the
API Heritage event.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. And so that's beyond their scope of days. So when we're looking at that, that is the form of the stipend. So as I'm reviewing them, I'm looking to see, does it fall in their job description? Or is this an extra duty that they're picking up after school, not during their workday?
And that, thank you for that, Superintendent. And you will also let us know how you have come up with the calculations of how much a stipend should be.
We can definitely come back with that. And as you go through the budget, when you look at the line item, it will say like base, I think.
Liaison, I saw.
Yeah, you see it. So there are
I've seen
GLAD
it, yeah.
tutors. I think, I'm just thinking off the top of my head where you see them. So if there's one that you're like, well, what is this and what do they do? We can give you more context of what that is. But that's what I'm looking at as we go through the budget. And so if you have more questions, just send me an email. We'll get the whole information out to the whole
Yeah,
board.
because the stipends are kind of problematic.
Can I just clarify though, because in that case, those extra added duties such as a face liaison, GLAD, that is an extra job role that they sign up for and then, they apply for. So it's extra money that we're expending, but something like Rita Tate, where she's taking on somebody else's role, that means we're no longer paying salary on the original person, so we're not expending quote unquote extra money. So, no, but I'm asking, so in this, when we're talking about stipends in this context, I'm assuming we're only including those extra duties and not those one-off scenarios where because somebody has left the district, now I got to assume two job functions.
And that's what, Ms. Fabian, that's what I'm talking about, us kind of getting a handle on who's getting stipends, how much they're getting, the stipends are, and why are they getting stipends?
So it's both and. When I looked in this budget, I didn't see any and. I'm going to use that word. So in a sense, hypothetically, I'm going to look at Ms. Dotson out there. So Ms. Dotson left and we had to find someone to replace her in her duties. Then someone is picking up extra duties. And I don't know why I used you. I just sent you out there. So that's not in this budget, but that does happen. So I'm not going to say that does not happen, but it happens with intentionality. And I look, along with Ms. Pope, we look at what they're taking on, what's in their day. Dr. Cesario and Mr. Moulton look at that per their division, and they come with a recommendation. And sometimes their recommendation may be X, and I will look at it and I'm like, okay, well, I think it should be Y. And so we'll discuss that.
I understand that, but in that instance, again, it's not extra money because we are now not spending salary.
Absolutely, yes. So that person's vacant.
For this purpose is just the stipends that is extra and additional.
Right. These are duties within the school, whether tutoring, et cetera.
And most of those are contractual. The hourly rate is contractual.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, what is it now, Amanda? I think it's like $40. Yeah. And that's reflected on most of the lines as well. It's reflected in that spreadsheet.
Does this include like after-school coaches?
All of it.
For the coaches?
Yes,
things
sir.
like that?
Yes, sir. All of it. Yes.
And can we get those online at some point?
Yes.
I'm going to be a broken record and say that you know, we're comparing it to their job descriptions. We need to make sure our job descriptions are accurate so that we can better assess when a stipend is needed. And I want to know, or ensure rather, I want to ensure that anyone doing extra duties that is entitled to a stipend is getting paid their stipend. I don't want to hear stories of someone saying, well, I've been doing for this for so many years. I've been doing door duty, I've been doing this, and I'm not getting a stipend for it, right? So I think it all goes back to like the job description, and to Ms. Fabian's point, having a system that accurately captures when those extra duties are happening. You know, because if it's all pen and paper, we've seen what happens.
And some of those are in the contract, like the door duty stipends, like it is what it is, and that's what we have to pay them. But to your point, the reason that some of them don't get paid is because we're on these paper forms that have to go from one building to the next building to like 3 different signatures to finally get to payroll. And it's just an antiquated system. And I think for us, I know we're talking about trying to spend down, but I think it would be worth it because we want to retain our staff and we want to make sure that they're
And you have to
being
pay them what
properly
they're doing.
compensated. Yeah.
So that is noted, and that is a fair assessment. And I previously had explained to the board that we will be bringing back a proposal on reviewing all job descriptions. We were scheduled to bring it in May. However, because of the new way we're going to be meeting and seating of the new board, we at least wanted the board to get comfortable this month. So you will see that in June.
And now just adding in the wording of job descriptions, usually there's a phrase that says,
Other duties as assigned.
yeah, other duties as assigned. And so we kind of have to kind of mesh it together where,
A general idea of what that means.
Yeah, what that
A
means.
generalized.
Because if it's other duties as assigned or whatever, why are they getting stipends for?
I just want a picture for the
But we
district
don't,
what
we
that
can
is.
do that another time or talk about it.
Yeah.
Another time.
Yeah,
It's just
there's
kinda
a whole
confusing.
philosophy in HR around other duties as assigned. I can't say we're going to move away from that, but those duties, I mean, it's like, if it's not on your job description that you can make a copy, does not mean that you cannot make a copy, right?
Right.
And so we got to also be cautious that we're not boxing ourselves in as a district.
if there's new
So, but
technology.
that will be, when we do bring the job description endeavor forward, that will be an expert that looks at all that and how that is done in school districts, corporate America, and that terminology and philosophy behind it. So that will be a discussion that we will all be having.
Okay, now, are the stipends always for extra hours worked?
Some of it is, especially for those things after school. And it's in the school improvement plans.
Okay, so some people may be getting stipends because they're taking on additional work, but they're still working the same number of hours.
So lunch
Absolutely.
duty, door duty?
Yes.
Those are morning, middle, and during the day?
Outside of
Those
work
are,
hours.
those are,
But those are contractual.
right, but
That
that's
is-
still a stipend that a teacher is signing up
Yes.
for an extra duty.
Right.
So it's not after school, but it's an extra duty. They're giving up their lunch for that.
Right, but that's more hours that they're working,
That's
right?
right.
So like within their, let's very generalize, like if it's a 40-hour work week and 5 of those hours are for lunches, you're working 35 hours. But if you are opting in to do lunch duty, you're giving up 30 minutes a day. So then
Yes.
that shifts that.
Yes.
I think the
That's extra
concern
time.
that Mr. Rodriguez is saying is that if you are a 40-hour employee and you are doing added time, that you are still doing your 40 hours worth of work, and then the stipend covers beyond that. So you're essentially not double dipping, doing your regular ongoing,
Right.
and that's what you're
That's the
getting at,
point I was
right?
making.
That is
Beautiful.
correct.
Okay, I want to make sure
Yes.
we're on the same page.
Whatever like you said, whatever the normal work hours are, they're
Yeah.
performing those duties, and these are extra time that they're working.
They don't get overtime pay?
They only get overtime pay if they exceed 40 hours, and for the SEIU, is over 8 hours per day or 40 hours a
Oh,
week.
yeah.
So it's
That's
different
also
work
California.
rules. We have to refer to the agreements.
Yeah, yeah.
But on average, it's over 40 hours a week. That's when overtime kicks in.
But if they're receiving a stipend for added time,
That's different.
that's different.
Yes.
So
Overtime
contractual-
is time and a half.
They're not getting paid, if they're getting a stipend and that extra time is being paid for completely by the stipend,
It's a
and they're
flat
just
amount.
doing their 40 hours, there's
Yeah.
no overtime being paid.
Overtime is
So-
time and a
Okay, I
half
was just
or
making-
double time.
Right.
Got it.
That's different.
That's
Okay.
different than a stipend.
That's over, right, it's different than a stipend or supplemental pay.
So I think
Overtime
for
is
clarity's
working
sake,
over the
is
40
it depends
hours.
on the number of hours that a certain group works, because some work 8 hours, but we have some paras, for example, that may only work 6.5 hours.
Yes.
So if that salary is calculated at 6.5 hours a day, that's what
Yes.
they're getting. But now they've worked an extra hour because somebody's mom didn't pick them up or whatever, they're staying with the kid, that would be the extra overtime hour, because we've only
Outside of
calculated
contract.
for 6.5. So it's not that, 40-hour
Yeah.
work week, it's what we've calculated that they're supposed to be working.
They're contracted hours.
Yeah.
And every contract is different, and so it has to be handled differently. So it's really important that we know which contract we're looking at when we look at what we pay and what we don't.
Yes.
And I think the easiest way to look at this is I was a history teacher at a high school, and I had lunch and I had 2 preps. And so if I worked my prep, right, I took on an extra class, I'm giving up my time, which means I have to do that work at home or somewhere. And so I would get paid for that prep that I would work, right? And so I think of it in that manner, that yes, they're there, but normally when they're giving up their time, there's other duties like grading papers, creating this, that they're not doing, and they have to do it later in the day. So I think that's the best way to explain it. Thank you, Ms. Poe.
Yes. Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Because, let me say this, because it's easy to say that time is a part of the 40 hours, even though it's lunchtime or whatever, it's still a part of the 40 hours. So when we go to calculate it for overtime, it has to be over the 40 hours to get time and a half. On Sundays, I believe, is double time. Right. So I wanted to distinguish between that overtime and double time, or whether they're getting supplemental pays. That's different. If they give up that time that was not teaching time, right, then they would get that supplemental pay as the superintendent described,
They elected to.
Got it.
because they elected to give it up, so they get paid for it.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, next slide. Operating expenses. Again, the details are on the link at the bottom of the sheet. And you see that Business and Financial Services and Fund 80 has that 3.2. That's because that's tort liability. And so we always put it under us. We could put it under us or put it under legal, but we put it under us for these discussions' sake. The $531,000, you remember that we have to pay $500,000 on a bond that we got in 2016? 2016, and that was for 16 years, and we said that we would pay that out of O&M. So that money is money we pay, it's not debt. So that's that $500,000 there. Operations and maintenance has normal operational expenses of the 5.3, and transportation has normal operating expenses of 11.2, and food service and other expenses are the 8.4. Any questions here? Next slide, please. So this is a summary page of all of the operation supports and programs, approximately $50.1 million. So again, this covers the TART fund, this covers capital projects, life safety, O&M, even debt, right? Debt services, and the education fund for those areas that fall under operation services. Any questions here?
Yeah, the life safety fund seems really low. And my question, I guess I'm going back sometime, and Mr. Moten, you may remember our color-coded project, life safety color-coded project. Are they included in this? It doesn't look like.
In the last few years, if I could answer for you. In the last few years, we've not had many expenses that's been in life safety because we covered a lot of them capital projects, right? So we've addressed many, $80 million or so of those capital projects, those that were classified as 1 and 2 or A and B, whichever you described them. So we've addressed many of those. Of course, when Mr. Moulton presented the life safety list of projects, we had about $120 million. I mean, so we still have a lot to go, but obviously we've addressed those that were most pressing, right? So until we do another life safety report, then we'll get additional projects that are high priority, or 1s or 2s or A's or B's, right? And then we'll be able to bring that to you. But at this particular juncture, we're requesting that we only put $8 million in this budget because we don't have fiscal capacity to do all of these projects and to maintain the educational initiatives that we need to maintain. So it's one or the other. We can't do all of it. Miss Hannah, you're looking at me.
No, I'm just
Okay.
saying, I would just like to know, with all of those initial projects, right?
Yes.
Some kind of chart to, you said 80, we've used 80 million for life safety.
No. Overall capital project.
Okay.
Yes.
So that 80 million, how much of that 80 million was spent on completing those mandatory life safety issues? And what was completed that was on that was on the list?
Yes.
And have they been removed off the list? Is the list decreasing, I guess you could say?
Yeah, so we'll have to come back to you with that information, but what's important for you to know with life safety, when we get that money for life safety, there's a 10-year report that's sent to the county.
I know.
All right? And so once we've pulled all of the money that we have, the life safety, we can't exceed that. And so whatever we use that life safety money for has to be identified as life safety project.
Absolutely.
If there's any additional life safety projects that come up, Mr. Moulton, Mr. Briner has to submit appropriate paperwork, right, to the regional office, to the state, that has to go to the county so that we can increase the amount of money that we could get in taxes for life safety.
Right.
All right, so that is closely monitored. Those things that are identified on that 10-year life safety project list are identified, as I just said, as A projects, B projects, or C projects. Those things that are A projects have to be addressed within 1 year, right?
No.
So
And that's
those
why.
things were the first things, I'm speaking for you, but if I say something wrong, then say, those things that are on the A list were those that were addressed first
Right.
by Mr. Moulton, right? Because it would become an issue if we don't address it within that
Right.
1 year period.
Right.
So we could certainly give you the list of the projects that have been completed, because once they're completed, that paperwork also goes to the regional office, goes to the county, right? And so they close that out, and we could get that information from them and share it with the superintendent and give it to you. But we cannot exceed that amount. We can't.
I get it. I just want to know if we are decreasing
Are things getting checked off?
the things that
Are critical.
are critical, and where are we with that? And I certainly hope we would not wait another 10 years.
We've been
to
working
go
on
back
them, Miss Hannah,
and
yeah.
to see, to review what has been done, where we are. We don't need to wait 10 years for that.
No, ma'am. We'll come back with the report on the life safety, whether it's through email. So, LeBaron, if you can please give the board an update on where we are with the life safety projects.
Yes, sir.
My question, Polk, is regarding the portable, those deteriorating.
The mobile?
The
One
mobile.
time we had talked about bringing those,
It's not.
consolidating.
You have to have your mic on.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry. All right. My question, Ms. Polk, is regarding the portable trailers.
The mobiles, yes.
The mobiles, yeah. So I know that those were deteriorating. I believe at one time we heard from Mr. Moten that they were going to look at the ones that were critical to be repaired or replaced. Some of them might be consolidated. I wondered where that is in here, where, are those mobiles considered, have we done a study as to which ones we can get rid of and which ones we still need, and are we going to replace any of those? Because those were big expenses if we're going to replace them.
So that's more of a capital improvement question. You're not going to see that reflected.
It's in here.
It is in there? Oh, I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
Okay, it is in the budget.
No, we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
We are? A little
Yeah,
bit later.
it's in
Okay.
here.
Okay, then we'll wait to talk
We'll
about it.
leave that till later.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Fabian, you had a question?
So my question is, when were these numbers projected? Just because knowing the tariffs and knowing the costs of everything rising, as we're going through these projects, how old are these quotes? And if we're seeing that now things are going to be 25% more, how quickly are we able to go back and say, hey, these projects have now increased, now we need to get this much because this is not enough?
Yes.
Or has that been planned for?
It's been planned for because we have 8 in here, and we only have identified 3.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That was intentional.
Sorry. And so I think part of this with trying to keep the cost as close to 3 as possible is really making sure that our contractors or our projects are staying on schedule, because if they delay, it puts us further down the calendar and could increase costs.
Yes. I
So
think-
let's just make sure we get our projects done on time. Yeah, and if we don't, there's consequences.
Yeah.
Should be.
Mr. Briner is hearing you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Brenner.
Any other questions on this? All right, ASAP, would you like me to proceed? Okay. Next slide, yes. So, each year, Mr. Chin has to do a comparability. The state requires us to give the schools comparables for those schools that have middle school, elementary, and the high school is an outlier because it's only one, but those that have very similar enrollment. So we have to give them a comparable within 10% of each other. I kind of frown at it because on one hand, we say, let's do equity, right? Let's do it on the
Equal
basis
is
of
not
need,
equity.
right? And then we have comparability, which is equal.
Yeah. That's
So it's kind of oxymoron here. But we're required to do it because we're a Title I school district. And so the schools here are getting $11 million.
But we're able to, you said, play within that 10% range.
Yes.
but it looks like we haven't. Is there?
We did. We did. Those that are at the bottom, AOEC and the high school, and I believe Glenwood, right, Mr. Chen? Glenwood
okay.
are outliers. So those that are above, started with Clark, Robbie Lightfoot is also an outlier. So from Clark all the way up to Carmen Buckner, those were considered in those little,
Comparable.
yeah, comparable, but in those strings. So for Carmen to North, they were together. From Andrew Cook to Clark, they were together.
Okay.
And then Jack Benny to Edith Smith, they were together.
Okay.
All right, and so one school would drive what the rest of them get, right? And so that's what we have to give to them. Some of these numbers are greater than what the school requested, and some are less than what the school requested. It all depends on what one school or the other is getting that's in their strength.
I have two questions. Can you help me understand why the per pupil rate for our high school students are drastically lower than our elementary school students?
It's simply because of the comparability. That's all.
What does that mean?
Because, again, the high school is not a part of the comparability study. They
There's nothing to
requested,
compare to.
we're giving them almost all of what they requested in their school improvement plan. And based upon, let's consider this. Those numbers it doesn't include the allocations from the district office, because the district office is also supporting them, right? So this is solely money that's given directly to the schools for their school improvement plan, okay? So the reason why that number is lower is because they have more students. If I were to give them $700 a student,
Yeah.
2,000.
you know what I mean? That would just be astronomical. And we would have to cut something within the district office.
I'll keep that to myself.
Not, our job is to make financial recommendations to the superintendent and the Board of Education, and to advise on what would keep us fiscally solvent. And I can assure you, where we are right now is all we can do. So if we do anything else, we would have to cut something else.
Okay, so my second question, for the schools that are getting more than they asked for, are they able to donate their excess that they don't use to another school within our district?
We're hoping that that is the case. But
Wait,
when
one more time. We are hoping that they do that?
We're hoping that they do
Okay.
do that.
There's a plea that's made to them.
There is a plea at this moment. And I think that we've been able to do that in past years because we put it in contingency, but it is under that school's DAC or location code. But the requirement, because we're a Title I school district, we have to allocate it in the budget.
Right.
What we do after that,
Is their decision.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
But I just want to clarify again that for the high school, although it looks significantly lower per
Yes.
pupil, we are still granting them everything that they have requested in their plan.
There's a slight reduction, but it's a slight reduction.
They got
It's not
majority of what they
significant.
requested, but I will tell you, no one gets everything they requested. We look
Trust
for
me, I'm-
intentionality.
we do
look-
ours as well,
We
yeah.
look to see how it aligns with their
Priorities.
strategic plan. How does it align with their data? Does it support student learning? What lever they're trying to pull? So there's many questions that get asked in regards to that, but majority of the times, our principals are very intentional in what they're asking for and how they're applying it within their school buildings.
Yeah, that's $5 million.
But I mean, this also helps them, right? Because they have to know, like, what's the max I can get? What, and then kind of aim for that.
And this is not salary and benefits. none
Right,
of the
right, right.
supplementals or anything. It's, yeah.
School
it is.
improvement.
Any other questions about the comparability? You've heard my sorrow about equity versus equal. Yeah.
Not the same.
Next slide, yes. So the goals and action steps, they're by responsible office. The values are shown here. Again, if you want to see the details behind these numbers, the link is there. I have notes here that transportation for bilingual two-way dual program, the 90,000, the bilingual after-school tutoring 50K, DLCLC for personnel success program, the 4K, and the outreach McKinney-Vento transportation of 2 million are not in these numbers. We put it under operations, transportation, and food service. So you won't see it here.
I will request that we get the link updated because it's not connected.
Okay, so we'll make sure that it's active.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Operating expenses, same thing, and we'll make sure that the links are operable. The link will be provided. It's $1.4 million rounded, and you'll see the applicable departments, the values, and the points of contact. Any questions here?
I don't see this building. Operating expenses.
We did not put specifically a report in here for 214.
Why?
But we
The departments.
are compiling that information, and Mr. Chin has worked very hard on that, and that should be available real soon.
Is there a way to denote what departments are in 214 on these, like kind of do like maybe a little asterisk? Because some might be in here.
I think all of these are actually in here with the exception of IT. I'm just looking in departments today, yeah. Majority of all of these are here with the exception of IT.
But I don't know how we gonna do an accurate budget if we don't have all of the components.
The cost associated with this building, remember, it was outstanding payments of about $600 and something thousand that we discussed at the budget committee. So that was the outstanding invoices for 214. The utilities and all of that is included in the operations budget that was submitted. I thought you were referring to the overall cost for 214. That's what we're working on. And as a cursory number, I could give you, we don't have it finalized, but of the $13 million that you gave us, we're at 12.9. 12.9.
That has been spent.
Yes, and committed at this point.
Okay, don't talk to me about that right now, because my brain is over here, and because it's not comprehending, but.
Okay.
Can I make a correction?
Yes.
I said with the exception of IT and also diverse learners.
Oh.
Ms. Polk,
Yes.
can you just give me an idea of what you actually mean by operating expenses? Just take, for instance, IT.
Normal paper, all of the things that would take to run an office.
To run, I mean, supplies.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about?
supplies, equipment,
Indirect
computers,
costs.
stuff like that.
So I guess I'm confused because, for instance, IT, I would imagine that they would use a lot more stuff than outreach, but I see outreach is 140,000, and so I'm not sure what you mean by supplies. You know,
Yeah.
would outreach include their cars and stuff like that? Is that what you're
Cell
talking about,
phones.
or what do you mean?
Outreach, is he here? Yes.
And meanwhile, Mr. Dupuy comes up, but that would also be noted in the budget, in the link below, is that correct? Where they could go through each
That's-
one of their
if-
budgets?
yeah,
Okay, I just
if
want to
that-
make sure, but,
But if we could have.
Yeah,
Mr. Yeah, I'm not taking that away from
Okay,
her. I
good.
just want to make sure that the
Just-
public
okay.
knows
Right.
that if they wanted to look at the budget to see how this breaks
would be
down,
line by
the
line
link is right below. But go ahead, Mr. Dupuy.
Yeah, to answer your question, part of our funds are allocated. We have, according to the collective bargaining agreement, we have 20,000 already set aside for uniforms for our staff members. That's off the top. Multiple teammates of mine have old computers, so we have to buy new computers as well.
Okay.
So I don't have my paper in front of me, but if you look at the details of it, I made sure that we even cut back on things just so that we can stay aware of where we're at when our spending.
Okay.
That helps.
Right, well, I guess it
Probably
does,
also the
you know,
number
like
of staff.
IT, I mean, I know when IT buys something, it's extremely expensive, you know, the equipment and stuff that they buy. That's why I was confused why IT was so small.
Yeah, that would be under
And,
contract.
you know, something like,
Good evening. You're correct. In this section right here, if you can see in the goals, we have $1.6 million. In the operational expensive, we use that category only for the supplies that we need to run the IT department. Overall,
And they're very
the rest of the
efficient.
funds are in different categories,
Okay.
like Chromebooks, devices that we need for the server rooms, network equipment, that's in other sections here. But in this one in particular, the $15,000 that we're asking is just for office supplies.
okay, just office supplies. Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Cuevas.
We got it. It's okay. Dr. Cesario, we got it. We can go to the link. It's fine.
Have a smaller
Thank you.
staff.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Polk.
Any other questions? And then the contracts, same thing. It has the link at the bottom and the totals here. IT, there they are, 4.6.
Right.
You want to go back to the other page?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. I knew Dr. Cuevas liked to spend a lot of money.
Yes. Any other questions here? And so the next slide, currently, they're requesting $42 million. And again, this excludes the transportation costs that I spoke of earlier and salaries and benefits. And also, whatever was requested in the supplementals are not here because they're a part of the salaries. All right, now we're going to talk about capital projects, Mr. Chen.
All right. So on this slide, as Mr. Luosa and Ms. Polk have already mentioned, we're looking at 8.6 million in Fund 60 to, facilitate our capital projects and to meet those needs. This would include, as noted in parentheses in blue, this would include a $4.9 million contingency for projects not yet identified. We go to the next slide. So here we are. We have, you will see, it's basically one sheet, but it's, it's 3 columns, but split into 2 sets. So we can see if we're starting in the upper left-hand corner, we're looking at the Hyde Park secure entry and administrative office renovation. You will see the note in red in parentheses that is currently in progress. For any existing projects that are in progress, you will see that note in red parentheses. Okay, so at multiple school sites, there's still some outstanding payments to be made to Johnson Controls in the amount of $35,982. Ms. Polk had just spoken to the outstanding payments for this property here, 214 Washington. Right now, that stands at $687,000, and the list goes on, as you can see.
was discussed at the Capital Development Committee. And so that prioritized list hasn't been solidified. So it's not depicted here, but it hasn't fallen off. And as I've said before, you see that there's 3.7 here, but there's 8 million plus that we're putting in the budget. And so that's for adjustments in cost for existing projects, as well as to prioritize additional projects, maybe inclusive of those mobile.
Okay.
Mr. Chin, I do have a question around the greenhouse for Oakdale. And maybe my memory is failing me, so apologies. But I believe the board had approved a certain amount for this current school year for the greenhouse at Oakdale. So I'm just curious as to why there's a continued expenditure in the 2025-2026 school year.
I don't think we ever.
I thought we didn't.
Okay, it didn't get approved?
No.
Didn't.
Okay.
We put
Oh,
that-
that's my misremembering.
Yeah,
I said yes, but the board did not say.
Yeah, the
Got it. Okay.
superintendent put it on hold.
Okay, and so then this
I'm
is
not
just
mistaken.
closing that loop
Yeah,
with the budget.
It's, yeah, because I thought we were going to talk about looking at different grants and ensuring that
it-
there's somebody
we-
that's going to maintain them.
And they
I
are,
can-
they're still fundraising.
Yeah, we just
Yeah.
put that on here because it was a placeholder before. It's still on the list, just so
Okay.
it just like didn't disappear,
Okay,
right? So
okay.
that's still here. We'll have to have a
Got
further
it.
discussion of
Gotcha.
surrounding this. Like
Okay.
all this is not being done right now. These are some of the projects that
Yeah.
we may potentially do, right? Some are gonna rise to the top, some may fall further. And then there's always the probability that something needs to be fixed immediately, like a water main break. So
Understood.
we just have that here,
Okay.
so
As a
it's
visual.
transparent that that was still on the list and it's in front of us.
Okay. And then can someone help me understand what remaining renovations for this building are? Oh,
No, that I can't.
no, you're fine. If you want me to
I was in the last
backpedal.
bullet point. I just wanted to share with you all, we're working with Oakdale and the curriculum for the
Yes.
greenhouse and the grades with curriculum council. So it is coming, it's moving through.
Beautiful. I love a curriculum behind it.
I
And that
don't,
can scale up to
Well, just
Lewis.
ensure that it'll be
I don't
tax
believe
expensive.
there's remaining, Mr. Moulton, will you touch on 214 and Ms. Lenzing's question on remaining? I'm sorry, Ms. Lenzing, can you state your question again? You said something about 214 remaining.
Yeah, can you help me understand what this just under 700,000 is going to go to in this building?
And something is in progress.
Yes, so good evening, board members, superintendent. So to answer that question, those are encumbered funds under the original contract that the board
Okay.
approved. That's just the remaining funds to be paid, primarily the last
Okay.
pay application and the retainage that we're holding for the contractor on that project.
So this is trickle over.
Yes, so we'd be carrying this over from what was originally approved, just because it hasn't physically been paid yet from the original contract.
Understood. Okay.
Anywhere in
Thank you for that
here, is there,
Yes.
are there funds for signage? I know, I don't remember who pointed it out, Mr. Vukovic, because I thought the same thing as well. Like, there's nothing, especially that it's the wraparound center, there's nothing, there's no signage
Eye level.
on the street level, like in the window, anything.
Right.
So,
That is
Is
still
any of
coming
that in
because
here?
there's going to be flags that are outside on the light posts. There's going to be decals on some of the front windows, but
Yeah.
that's still coming. We moved in as of now, but there's still more work.
but is that
we're-
is that budgeted in here somewhere?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to put yes right now because it's going to be more signage as far as wraps and stuff are concerned.
Yeah,
So let me come back
absolutely.
to the board with that, if you don't mind. So can I just please leave that as unanswered and we'll circle back?
Good. All right.
Oh, don't go.
okay. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is just a title slide, basically. You can see projected FY '27, so not this coming year, but the year after. And of course, it says in red, values to be determined and projects subject to change, because when we go to this slide, you will see that there is a link underneath the title, the link to FY27 and beyond potential capital projects for consideration. So of course, the key words there being potential and consideration, because that's a couple years out, and a lot can happen between now and then, and priorities can shift in terms of what the needs of the district are in regard to capital improvements. So when you click on that link, that is our current list under consideration, which takes into account all of the requests received from principals at the schools regarding what they feel their needs are in terms of facility improvements and upgrades.
Mr.
And we do have bond money left, as was stated previously in the presentation. Over that course of 4 years, approximately 18 million, and that will be infused into this plan, what is approved by the Board of Education.
Mr. Chin, I'm having great difficulty accessing this link. Like, they're laughing at me because I'm like touching
I'm
all
laughing
around.
because I thought it was me as well.
No, yeah, I mean, it's totally fine. I'm fine to be laughed at.
No, I thought it was me that couldn't access.
My only plug is that we continually request the PE waivers because we don't have the facilities to support everyday gym class in our district due to facility limitations. So I'm really hoping that's on here, because even at a board level or a state level, I think there's been some discussions around a mandate not allowing those waivers anymore. And so we need to be proactive and plan for that. Not only do I believe our kids deserve PE every day, but we also may be forced into not being allowed to do the waivers.
Yeah, so definitely off the top of my head from some of the principals, they have identified that on this sheet. I can think of, Little Fort just comes off the top of my head.
Yeah,
right away.
yeah.
That's one of them. So, yeah,
perfect.
understood.
And just another side note, because we are having difficulty with these links, can somebody create a spreadsheet of the names of each of the things and have the links sent to us that way? Okay. That's okay. Listen,
Hey, this
I've
is a
been
lot
there
of
with you
work
before, so I get it.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. You're done. Okay. Next slide,
Now I
please.
broke it.
Next slide. Thank you very much. So now we're, this is the one Ms. Hannah loves. You love this. So in the education fund, you'll see what we're projecting we're going to come into the year with. In the education fund, $65.6 million we're thinking we're going to end the year in the bank with. O&M, 10.5, debt service, 2.5, and transportation, 6.5 rounded, right? And so in 2026, we're hopeful that we'll get in the education fund in revenue $246 million, whereas we're projecting that we're going to spend $271 million. So in the current year, as I've said, that we've had a historical deficit, we're continuing to have that. And so the amount of the current year deficit is going to determine how much comes out of that $65.6 million at the top, right? And the lower our revenue is, the higher that deficit in the current year is going to be, and the quicker we're spending the money that we're coming into the year with. And so we're projecting that we're going to end in the education fund with $40.7 million.
And next year, if we are over expenditures, then we're going to take the ending balance, and then we'll have to subtract the expenditures, the deficit spending out of that.
In
And it's
27.
In 27, okay, my whole point,
That number.
it dwindles. And what are we gonna do when it get to zero, where we don't have the beginning fund balance to cover it? That's my concern. You guys can think about that, process that, and bring it back to us. But, okay, that's my fear. I'm telling you, we're not going back.
Yes,
Okay?
I understand.
Look, I've been there, okay? And it's not good. It's not fun. It's not fun. And
Yeah.
we cannot go back.
We ended up on a strike. I was there too. It
We
was not fun.
cannot go back.
I think we saw the 27 projections already, and it was not a big deficit for that year, right?
No, not for the end of 26.
Right.
This is the end of 26 at 40.7, and we will not be overall deficit spending.
So it's not going to continue that trend through 26, 27?
When we get into the budget process for 26, 27, we have to look at our expenditures and adjust accordingly.
Right.
We have to look at what the revenue stream is going to be in that year as a projection, and then what our actual ending fund balance is going to be at the end of 26 to determine what is the appropriate level of expenditures for 27. So if we were to leave the expenditures as they are right now and have the raises, then we likely would have a deficit, right? But I do not project that that is the case, because the superintendent said earlier that those are things that we're going to look at, because we cannot maintain the same level of spending that we had when we had ESSER money.
Right.
Okay?
Especially without.
And I'm going to go
Yeah.
out on a limb, Ms. Polk, but it is going to be the administration's recommendation that we're going to have to raise taxes this year. We're going to have, we cannot not go out. Ms. Polk, you can, I want to be transparent on what we're seeing.
that's what's gonna
We've held steadfast for, what is this now, 4 or 5 years?
Or longer than that.
Yep.
Since
And
2018.
6 years. And so, you know, and we did it with intentionality, but it was not something that this district can do for forever. It's not possible, and it's not probable. It's not a conversation we have tonight, but we would not be being transparent if we were not showing you the numbers and what would be some possible recommendations that the administration is going to be bringing back to the board. And I know Ms. Polk has worked very diligently on this.
Oh, more than that.
Could we go to a microphone, please? Or maybe you can come up to the podium, yeah.
Okay, so my question was, we have 105 in the reserve. Okay, so deficit, does this mean we're pulling 24 million from the 105? Is that what we're doing now? Okay,
Yeah.
that's a lot.
That's just
That's just the
education.
education.
And you got O&M, we're
Right.
gonna pull some there.
Right.
And then you got transportation,
That's a
we're gonna
lot.
pull from there.
So we need to see where we are, right? With that reserve fund, what's left in there?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say this point again. A good number of American families are one paycheck away from homelessness.
Yeah.
So while, yes, we need to have a big conversation about it, and we see the impact on the school district, we also need to keep in mind that with the cost of everything going up, we may see a larger shift of our families going into homelessness because this is an added cost onto them. Like one paycheck away.
And raising taxes, we're going to continue to get people leaving home here in Waukegan. There's flight going on now, and so we have things to think about.
Yep.
And
Sure do.
we kind of need to get on with it.
Yes, that's why we wanted to present to you the total picture of where we are and where we project we will be. And so some serious discussions have to be had. The superintendent is making that recommendation on the basis of $35 million that we have left on the table, and that was at the direction of the Board of Education. And if we continue to do that, it's only going to compound, and we would never be able to recapture that tax base. But if that's a priority of the Board of Education, that is the decision that the Board of Education is making. And so those hard decisions about where that money is going to come from has to be made, because there's only a certain amount of money that we're getting from the state in evidence-based funding. Right now, we are tier 1, which is excellent, right? Which means we get a large portion of the state aid. As long as the other school districts' enrollment is going down, comparable with ours, then we will stay tier 1. But we moved from like 54% to now, I think we're like 70%. So eventually, we're not going to be tier 1. We're going to be tier 2, which means that we're not going to be in that low tier where we're going to get more of the state aid. Okay, so we have to be cognizant of that, as well as the executive orders and the impact of what that might be. We have to think about that. We have to think about staffing levels. The majority of our budget, about 80%, 78 to 80% of our budget is staffing. Okay, so that doesn't go down, that goes up. Even if you were to RIF, which no one wants to hear that word, but even if you were not to, you're still going to have increased costs and compensation. So some of the other initiatives, some of those that the board has asked the superintendent to do, would be put on the table for discussions without increasing those taxes. And so again, it is not the role of the business office to say to the superintendent what she should or should not do, nor is it to the Board of Education, but it is our responsibility to give you a picture of the landscape, and that's what we're showing you.
I do want to say, in stating this, I don't make this statement or what we're seeing now, and things may change. You never know. There may be a flood of money that comes through. Let's pray for that. But as of right now, I don't make these decisions in isolation. I take the advisement of Ms. Polk and her team that is seated there. It's not that Ms. Placencia is in her office and saying we need to do this. But when we look at the landscape, the business office let's say the administration, which means all of us, we're not looking for just next year and the third year. We're looking 10 years out. And so not looking 10 years out would be negligence on our part. And so when we're looking at this, we're looking at how do we keep this district fiscally solvent and be able to provide the direct services to students without cutting anything right now that we have on the table. Our kids, and that has been my message to the whole team, is that I will not cut direct services from students. Morning tutoring, after-school tutoring, extracurricular activities, sports, clubs, SEL supports during the day, after the day, through the just a number of ways. Like, that is just one area that our community cannot cut in because our students need it the most. And that is what has been the most effective for them to extend the school day.
So as a taxpayer, I'm not excited about talking about increasing my, homeowner taxes either. However, I also enjoy the benefits of having a public school district for my child. So I want to make sure that those services are there. So I think when that discussion comes back, if we can get comparables to districts that are like like ours, right, with the 68% falling into that low income, and what those different communities are paying, so that we can kind of have a comparison as well. I understand fully, my career's been based on servicing families, and I totally understand the hardships. But again, some of that money that we bring in, we also provide the services back out, right? So I just, if when this comes back, if we can get comparables to like areas that have similar populations, I know nobody's going to be as big as Waukegan, but percentages wise, with the needs that we have.
Yes, I could certainly do that, but I could almost assure you that it's not, yeah, but I'm going to do that for you. But I could almost assure you that probably 0 of them have kept their taxes level for 6 years.
I know, I have family throughout the county, and my Zion family is not happy.
Yes.
That is an amazing feat that the Board of Education needs to be very proud of.
Yes.
Right.
But
Yes, sir.
So I agree with what Ms. Fabian has just said. But I would also ask if you could let us know, I know, for instance, Zion is getting some extra money because they've lost the nuclear plant. You know, there was some compensation that was going to be going to them, I believe I read recently. But anyway, corporate-wise, our real estate taxes, I mean, Waukegan's lost over the years a lot of businesses. Could you, do we anticipate that, our corporate taxes are going to be increasing, or are they still decreasing? And then there was something in our minutes, it's talked about last year, this time budget, we talked about losing $7 million in corporate personal property taxes. Did that actually happen?
Oh, it actually happened.
That actually happened.
Yes, it actually happened.
So this past year, and is that going to be a loss again? Are we going to lose more? And then in our taxes in the city too, the house prices have been going up. So we would anticipate as they reassess homes, but that takes a little while, that, we would start to get a little more income without even increasing taxes, just the fact that EAV is going up,
Yes,
you have
not
to
only
fill
the
those
EAV,
is that what you
but
call
we can
EAV?
increase the taxes, the CPI, Consumer Price
Consumer
Index
price.
of 5%, whichever one is lower.
Okay.
So when I did that calculation for that 35 million, I put what the CPI was for those particular years.
Okay.
And you'll see that it was 2 years that was at 5% because we have the cap at 5%. So even if it goes up
Even
higher
if the
than
value
that,
goes up, we can't tax more than 5%.
CPI or 5%, whichever one is less.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you can kind of give us that, do we anticipate we're going to get more in the next few years with?
If you all allow us to tax up to that.
Yeah.
We've not increased. We've not gone up any percentage.
Okay.
The only increase that we've gotten was that PTAP recapture. We've not gotten any additional taxes because the board directed the superintendent
keep
who
it level.
directed us to keep
it level.
level.
Okay, so
Yes.
if we say that we're not going to keep it level this year and just keep it, going up a little bit on the fact that the value of homes is going
The
up.
max we could go is 5%.
That the max we can go is 5%.
Yes.
And that includes corporate too?
Corporate property tax is separate. Corporate property taxes, we've gotten, when it was good, we were getting 22 million. Then it went down to 12. Then it went down to 10.
Right. Wow.
And so
A lot of
when
brick and
I
mortars
was
in
on the phone call with other large school districts, they were saying they were fearing it was going to go down again.
So-
We're hopeful that it's not.
Is our solar field going to generate any more money for us?
It's not
Not
going to be
enough.
that significant.
Not gonna be
Yeah,
not going to be much.
But
Not going to be much.
Start
No,
praying to your
$100,000.
sun god.
100,000, yeah, nothing like millions.
Oh, no, nothing like
It's not
that,
an atomic
no.
power plant. It's just
No.
Ms.
a
Polk,
small solar field.
to
Yeah.
clarify, so we have several businesses downtown that have for sale signs. There's no taxes being paid by empty buildings.
Yeah.
Is the same being said for homes?
There are some taxes that are challenged and some people who don't pay the taxes. And if it is challenged, that's how we have a reduction when the final extension comes in March, April timeframe. They tell us how much we have to adjust down our levy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've adjusted down voluntarily.
Yeah.
But
There's just, my point essentially is that there's a lot of like knobs to get to the final result, right?
Right,
Because like,
right.
as the houses get increase in cost, if it's not affordable housing, there's nobody in there to pay the taxes for the
Right.
thing. If I'm going to reword that. If our city is not bringing in businesses to fill those empty business real estate openings, then that's also lost revenue that could come to the school district.
Yeah, possibly,
So-
but when we tax, I could tell
Yeah.
you, it's very little adjustment that we would have to
Okay.
make to it. When remember when we do the levy, we go up to 4.999.
So it's just under, yep.
Just under 5%, so
Right.
that we don't have to do all of the legal things, right?
Yeah.
And so when we actually get the extension back in
Mm-hmm.
March or our April timeframe, it's a little that we have to make the adjustment, really.
Right.
But we drop it all the way down because the board tells us to.
Understood. I'm
So-
just saying that like with the larger climate.
And also understanding there's not as many brick and mortars anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, technology has increased that, so we're going to see less and less commercial businesses popping up. But I think also when you come back, if we could get, what an average house costs in Waukegan, what the current taxes are, how much it would increase.
Yeah.
Depending the different, different tiers, if we go up to that 4.99, I think that'll also help put into perspective that it's not your home tax is not going to go from, just for generic numbers,
Yeah.
from 4,000 to 8,000
Yeah.
in 1 year.
Yeah.
I think that'll also help calm people's nerves on
Yeah.
knowing that it's not a significant,
Right.
like a double of the increase of,
Yeah.
of what your taxes are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
if
a good,
it's a
that's a
$20
good point.
impact
Right,
versus
versus-
$1,000
exactly.
impact, that's a different.
Right.
That's
we
a good point.
also-
We normally present that to you when we do the truth and taxation
Yeah.
information. We provide that
do.
for a senior, you remember? We
Yes.
provided for a senior and then a non-senior person.
Right.
But the board has still said, keep it
Yeah.
level.
And we,
Go ahead, Ms. Hannah.
and we also have to take into consideration, in terms of people's tax bills, the other taxing bodies.
Yeah.
Because even though our rate stayed flat, right? People are
I get the bill, you.
people are
It goes up.
hooping and hollering about their taxes now, and we weren't even really in there.
Yeah, we got blamed for it. We didn't do it.
And we got blamed
But our
for it.
Waukegan tax is very
And
low. Significant.
nobody says
Our
anything
neighbors.
to the other taxing bodies, but because the school district gets the largest portion.
I think that's
of
where
the
we have to control
taxes.
that narrative and be better at
Yeah.
explaining that out to our
And
families.
right, and I have over the years told them, told people about that. But if, I don't know how it's gonna go over with the taxpayers. Now, if we're talking about increasing taxes now,
Those two slides are very, very important for people to see. One, it shows that we kept it level since
Oh, yeah.
2018, and then the impact of not increasing taxes.
Yeah.
$35 million is a lot.
Right, right.
well, I understand, and that would accrue
Yes.
over the year.
Yes.
That 35 now
Yes.
will be, if it were magically, for illustration purpose only, if it was magically put back into our coffers, that 35 million would be a continuous amount of revenue
Yes.
for our district.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was
Right,
0
I get
then,
it.
35
Right.
now,
30
100 a couple years down the road.
Right.
It's an yeah.
Right, but we also gotta try to look, hey, we gotta sell it to the taxpayers,
That part.
okay?
And we're taxpayers
We're
too.
taxpayers.
Yeah,
We're
taxpayers.
But there's some people that just
Absolutely.
can't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And I think it was also important what Mr. Vukovic said, comparing us to some of the other districts around us. You know, that's also.
I think with similar demographics.
That was starting with
With
those
similar.
comparisons, yeah.
Yeah.
We're done, right?
Well, there's a few more, but yeah.
Yeah, you done? Yes,
Yes.
I'm
done?
done.
No more
Unless
questions?
there is any other question.
There's a couple more slides. Wanna
Couple more
go
slides.
through 'em for
Oh, the
people
budget
watching?
concerns are
All
very.
right, these are the other funds that we've not spoken about, but it goes the same way. Next slide, please.
Tort fund.
That's
All
it. That's
right,
an
these are
important one.
budget concerns or challenges that we perceive. We've gone through those.
There's only one on here that I have a question on, and I'll keep
Okay.
it short. The ICEJA, why is this a potential concern or perceived challenge that they would not fund future wraparound?
Yes. Because we spoke to ICEJA, and they don't have the appropriation by the state yet.
Okay.
And so the superintendent sent a letter to State Representative Mayfield requesting that we have continuance of that grant.
Okay.
Okay.
And this year, Ms. Polk, this TRS payment, that's not approved yet, right? That's
It's
just
not
talked
approved,
about.
but it's continued discussions, and we're hopeful that that doesn't happen.
Right, let's hope it does.
That's millions if
Oh,
they
yeah,
shift
that
that to a
would be
school
terrible.
district.
Well,
Yes, that would
be
be terrible.
inequitable.
Yeah.
And this-
Anything?
I just hope
else
there's
there?
money in the funds when I have to pull from
Additional,
it.
next step, you know, of course, we have to monitor executive orders and then the rest of the stuff that's, which is the normal course of duty. Next slide. We believe this.
Right.
All right, next slide. And we're confident that this reflects priorities in the district.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Polk.
Thank you very much.
We asked all the questions already.
All right, just want to thank Ms. Polk. You and your financial staff are really to be commended for this fine job that you're presenting us. And also to be commended for the condition of the district, because, you know, you're throwing all the kudos to the board and the superintendent, but without your work, your professionalism, and all the hard work that you do and your dedication, none of this would be possible. So we really owe you a debt of gratitude, so thank you very much.
Right, Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
And as far as the decisions, I know Ms. Lenzing and Ms. Hannah, you know, raised the question, we're gonna have to, or the issue, we're gonna have to do some serious thinking. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when we make a decision, but we always have to. You know, this is something that we are sworn to provide the funding that the school district needs to operate. That's one of the items in our oath of office. And so we have to provide the resources. So on the one hand, we have to do that. On the other hand, we're representing the taxpayers who are footing the bill. We're going to say, hey, wait a minute, you know, and we have to do it so that everybody comes out, if not happy, at least everybody, you know, realizes, understands, and is benefiting from what we do. You know, it's not a simple decision. No, it's not simple. And you're right. We do have to do a lot of thinking, and we have to make the right decision for the right reasons,
Absolutely.
Have an honest narrative about it.
and have a good narrative about it, a positive narrative.
Well, just honest.
Yeah, and honest. Right.
And
Regardless of which way we go.
Absolutely, and having conversations with the community, kind of to bringing them into the conversation. So it's just not like, oh, well, the school district and the board, they're making this decision, you know, by themselves, and they haven't even considered us. Well, let's talk to the taxpayers and explain to them what's going on.
And you will run across them in the supermarket, so
Yeah.
Absolutely.
they will be wanting to talk about this. So let's see, we've covered everything. I guess I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
I think it's just a workshop. I think. Just
No,
adjourn.
No, we still have to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Hannah to adjourn. Second by
Mr. Riddle?
Mr.
Second.
Riddle. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 9:40.